Chapter 1848. She was here, the Empress of the Dragon Clan. The furious Empress of the Dragon Clan didn't intend to hide her arrival. She didn't care about letting others know about her arrival, or rather, the moment she appeared, she clearly wanted everyone to know about her arrival. The Majesty of the Dragon Clan. Almost at the moment when the terrifying scene of dark clouds appeared, Nan Xiaonan, who was controlling a group of monsters to wreak havoc in the palace, had already cut off the connection with the monsters. She was very clear about the sharp sense of touch of creatures who had reached a certain level of power. She didn't want the Empress of the Dragon Clan to find her by following the vine to the melon. However, the sudden appearance of the Empress of the Dragon Clan, could it be related to Mr. Luo, who said that he wanted to go to the palace to have a look? It should be fine, right? Nan Xiaonan muttered to herself. Then, she directly draped a green cloak over her body. She then laid down on the grassland of the hill facing the rear courtyard of the royal palace. She picked up this green cloak from the pile of equipment that Boss Luo had poured out. She almost took a fancy to it at first sight. Its hiding ability was top-notch. Nan Xiaonan did all this in just a few seconds. At this time, the huge figure of the Empress of the Dragon Clan had completely crossed the dark clouds in the sky. She hovered above the palace. Her body was actually nearly 100 meters long. What a powerful soul fluctuation. Nan Xiaonan quietly observed, this chessboard world actually has such a creature that is close to the limit? However, she thought of the conversation between the sealed big rock in the roaring forest, and she knew some of the origin of this chessboard world. Therefore, although she was surprised at this time, she wasn't too shocked. Moreover, she knew that she had really found a good treasure. The chessboard that could refine a complete world into it, even if it was placed in the void, it was still a top-notch secret treasure. So, if Mr. Luo gets the chessboard, he will say that he will cooperate with me, right? Nan Xiaonan quickly calculated at this time. Then, in the final profit, no matter what, he should give me some of the subworld's origin, roar. Then, the roar of the Dragon Clan Empress instantly interrupted the little scheme in the heart of this witch from the other world. She hurriedly gathered her spirit and calmed down, prostrating herself on the ground. They, the saint domains of the palace, naturally sensed the arrival of the Dragon Empress more easily. By the time the Dragon Empress had fully appeared, the two Saint Domain Masters outside the princess's palace had both climbed to the top of the palace to take a look. They could feel the wrath of the Dragon Queen. This wrath was madly shaking their hearts and souls. I've never seen such an angry Dragon Empress. Same here, one of the Saint Masters slowly flew up and spoke from afar. Your Majesty of the Dragon Clan, what has angered you? I am a human Saint Master. Just as he was about to introduce himself, an earth-shattering roar sounded out, followed by a huge impact that directly threw him to the ground. I don't have time for you. The Dragon Empress words were all that was left for this Saint Master to greet her. Although the impact was so great that it even caused the Saint Master's entire body to be embedded into the ground, it did not really take his life. However, after hearing the Dragon Empress words, the human Saint Master could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood and fainted. It was most likely due to shame and anger? The other Saint Master did not have time to stop him, nor did he want to be the one to stand out like his companion. He stood frozen on the spot, drenched in cold sweat. After the Dragon Empress shouted at the first Saint Master to retreat, she immediately roared at the sky. A huge pillar of light shot out from the dragon's mouth, shooting straight into the sky. The pillar of light dispersed all the dark clouds in the night sky, and then scattered down, countless rays of light falling in an arc in front of the city walls of the royal capital. In an instant, a huge, shimmering shield of light covered the entire royal capital of the kingdom of Anes. At this time, the Saint Master who was fine now had a look of horror on his face. The Dragon Emperor's barrier. What is she trying to do by sealing the entire royal capital? But no matter what the Dragon Empress wanted to do, even as a Saint Master of the human kingdom, He could only helplessly let things unfold. All of this happened very quickly. For Boss Luo, who liked to stop and take a second look when something happened, all of this happened in less than half a minute. He did not even leave the courtyard of King Amos' study. At this time, King Amos had already walked out of the study, and after frowning a few times, he calmed down and just silently watched all of this happen. You should have walked faster. King Amos suddenly looked at Boss Luo, who was not far away, and shook his head. Under the Dragon Emperor's barrier, no one can escape for now. This is the terrifying ability that Hilda uses to imprison anyone she wants to capture. As soon as the Yamos king finished speaking, the huge dragon in the sky above the palace suddenly disappeared. At the same time, in the courtyard in front of the study, a woman in a luxurious dress floated on the ground. She looked like she was in her 20s. She had a beautiful face, but only half of it. The other half of her face was as ugly as magma. The Empress of the Dragon race, Empress Hilda. Ever since the Dragon Empress Hilda appeared, she did not look at King Amos. Instead, she stared at Boss Luo. At this time, the courtyard was very quiet. It was so quiet that it was a little strange. Yamos, who is this person? Queen Hilda suddenly looked at King Amos and asked. King Amos was stunned by Queen Hilda's question at first, then he showed an almost bitter smile. You came to my palace in such a domineering manner and did not hide your anger at all, but you don't know who this person is? Oh Hilda, tell me, why are you so angry? Queen Hilda said indifferently, I didn't come for this person. It doesn't matter. Since you have seen my face, then die. She waved her hand, and in an instant, the invisible wind in the air condensed into sharp thorns. They gathered at one point and made an ear-piercing sound as they pierced through the air, piercing towards Luochio. At this time, Boss Luo was thinking about another problem. Why did the dragon race seem to be more violent? The Miss Long Shiro, he knew, was also a person who liked to fight without saying anything. But although Long Shiro was rude and unreasonable, it was rare for her to kill. King Amos shook his head again at this time, probably foreseeing the tragic situation of the opponent. But considering that Aurora's Aster was in the opponent's hands, it probably would not be so easy to kill him. The three godly weapons. Each of them was made by the hands of the continent's famous craftsman, Locke. Each of the three godly weapons could be called a weapon that protected the country. At the same time, the three godly weapons had another name, dragon-slaying weapons. Since the beginning of their creation, they were given powerful attributes such as restraining, armor-breaking, and even penetration against the dragon race. But what surprised King Amos was that Boss Luo did not take out Aurora's Aster at this time. The moment the wind spears condensed by Queen Hilda pierced towards Boss Luo, they melted. 360 degrees, without any blind spots, these wind spears were blocked from all directions, and even completely offset the impact of the wind spears. These wind spears were powerful, and any one of them could pierce through a thick city wall, but they could not pierce through a person's body. King Amos was surprised, but his eyes flashed with a trace of a smile. He knew that these outsiders had many means to deal with the strong in their world. At this time, Queen Hilda also realized that her attack did not work. She was not angry, but she did not hesitate to condense more wind spears. But the powerful wind spears still did not work. Queen Hilda snorted at this time, What kind of secret armor are you wearing? Let me see what kind of armor in this world can block my attack. Boss Luo thought at this time and said, The armor is not very nice to look at, so I won't show it. As for the name, it should be me sacred armor. Instantly, King Amos's face changed slightly. At the same time, a shocking murderous intent exploded from Queen Hilda's body. The pure murderous intent had already caused the ground, walls, and mountains of the courtyard to begin to collapse. Queen Hilda suddenly laughed lightly. Sacred armor? Do you know the origin of this armor? Boss Luo shook his head, indicating that he was not very sure. He could not say that he dropped it while killing small monsters on the way, right? It was made from the strongest 108 dragon scales of the Light Dragon King. Queen Hilda squinted at this time. That is, my grandmother. I didn't expect that in addition to the person that I must kill, I would meet a person who deserves to die today. The destruction of the courtyard could no longer be stopped. A large number of stones began to float in the air, and the murderous intent had already imprisoned everything here. At this time, Queen Hilda's long hair was standing up because of the murderous intent and anger. At this time, she was walking towards Luocio step by step. No matter who you are, wearing this armor is equivalent to trampling on the dragon race of the continent. I will cut you into pieces. This time, the Dragon Queen did not summon the wind spears, but instead, she punched out. Not far away, a pair of eyes was looking at everything in the courtyard without missing a moment. Laura really did not let me down. Sure enough, she called Hilda. What a perfect arrangement. There was a trace of joy in the voice, but the owner of the voice was hiding more and more, and the smile could not help but shoot out from the owner's eyes. Every time I wear the sacred armor, it is inevitable that I will be hunted down by Hilda, so I will not wear it often, unless the chess game is too strange. Then, Mr. Servant, you have defeated me twice in a row. I wonder how you plan to deal with this sure-kill situation? Divine armor won't be able to withstand Hilda's wrath. Not good, not good. I suddenly became too complacent. I can't let Hilda discover my existence now. At this time, the Dragon Queen's fist directly hit Luocio's chest at this time, without any deviation. Under the resistance of the sacred armor that was not revealed, the huge force was finally neutralized, but Boss Luo could not help but take 2 steps back. This was the first time that the sacred armor did not completely block the opponent's attack. This means that Queen Hilda completely exceeded the defense of the sacred armor completely. Wait a moment. Boss Luo said at the right time. It's too late to beg for mercy. Queen Hilda sneered and clenched her fists again. I'm wearing the divine armor. If you want to hurt me, you will destroy it, Luocio said calmly. Do you want to destroy it? The oncoming fist stopped abruptly, but the murderous intent in Queen Hilda's eyes soared again. I'll return it to you. What? What? In the shadows, the complacent look in his eyes suddenly froze. He almost shouted out loud at this time, but he reacted quickly and didn't really scream out loud. However, an expression of disbelief had already appeared on his face. He couldn't help but be shocked and angry. This guy, what is this guy trying to do? Is this a stalling tactic? No, he really is? What kind of operation is this? The moment Boss Luo spoke, a stream of colorful light began to flash on his body. After that, something peeled off from his body. The colorful light finally converged into a fist-sized ball of light that floated in Luocio's palm. Then, he sent it out, to Queen Hilda of the Dragon Clan. You! Queen Hilda opened her mouth at this time, somewhat absent-minded at this time. I'm very sorry, Luocio said apologetically. I didn't know that this armor was made from the scales of your grandmother. Along the way, it has blocked many dangers for me, and that's enough. Now, please take it back. This is what you should do. Queen Hilda looked at the divine armor, and that was so close to her in disbelief. With her unique senses, she was completely sure that this was not an illusory thing, but a real, divine armor. The aura of the Light Dragon King was now calling out to her. Until she gently grasped the divine armor in her hand and felt a familiar wave from it, Queen Hilda frowned and said, Do you think that if you give it to me, I won't kill you? On the contrary, without its protection, it will only be easier for me to kill you. It has protected me many times along the way. Boss Luo shook his head and said, This time, if it was damaged by you, the Queen of the Dragon Clan, in order to protect me, I think it would be a cruel thing for both you and the armor. Besides, without it, you may not be able to kill me, your majesty. Queen Hilda was silent for a long time before she let out a wild laugh. Human, I like you. At this time, Queen Hilda stopped laughing and said with shining eyes, I won't kill you. Come to the Dragon Clan's territory and become a member of my harem. I will spoil you until you die of old age. Boss Luo couldn't help but open his mouth. Dragons, all dragons were so direct like this. End of chapter. Chapter 1849. Surprisingly, King Amos did not react to Queen Hilda's words. No, he was shocked, but not because of the meaning of the words itself, but because of the change in Queen Hilda's attitude. Of course, the Yamos king knew that it would be very difficult to make the Empress of the Dragon Clan like him feel anything. First of all, one had to possess the sacred armor, and one had to be able to casually say the same thing in such an environment. There were many other things as well. For example, the Dragon Clan had always valued appearance, and how to make the Queen of the Dragon Clan enter a turning point that was easy to change when she was in a rage. There was an opportunity that was hard to grasp, and it could lead to instant death. Originally, when facing the Queen of the Dragon Clan, especially when the Queen of the Dragon Clan was in a rage, who would be willing to take off the sacred armor? The only thing that could save one's life. Such a person was either very wise and brave, or very mentally retarded. King Amos suddenly had an idea of how things would develop next. He chose to be a bystander, even if the whole world knew that the Queen of the Dragon Clan was King Amos's spouse. What was that saying again? If you want to live a good life, you need to be a little cuckold? What? You still don't want to? Seeing that the other party did not show the slightest sign of gratitude, or even any other expression, Queen Hilda's voice suddenly turned cold. You intend to disobey my orders? No one dares to disobey my order. She had the right to do so. As the queen of the most powerful race in the world, Hilda was undoubtedly the creature that stood at the top of the world pyramid. Even King Amos, who had almost unified the world, was just an outstanding plaything in her harem. From this perspective, it seemed that there was a reason why the princess of the royal palace could be so arrogant and cruel. No. Boss Luo shook his head and added, There is no such thing as willing or not for me. It depends on what Her Majesty can give me. What do you want? Queen Hilda said directly, More power than what you have now? Although your body is constantly releasing a powerful divine power, it's not impossible for you to go further. I can give it to you. Or power. I can even let you replace King Amos, and become the ruler of this world. But there is one thing I can't do. As a member of Hilda's harem, I'm not allowed to have any affair with other women. Back then, King Amos fell in love with a human girl behind my back. Do you know what happened to him? King Amos's expression changed slightly. The king who had almost unified the world was slightly agitated, but he quickly calmed down. Queen Hilda sneered and said, In order to get my support, in order to become the successor of this country, he personally sent the woman he loved to me and watched me push the woman he loved into the abyss with his own eyes. King Amos was still expressionless. It was hard to find any trace of resentment in his eyes. Hilda, my true love. Only then did I know that only a powerful existence like you is worthy of my lifelong pursuit. King Amos smiled and said, The love I had when I was young was just a spiritual sustenance due to the difficulties in life. I'm very satisfied with my current life. I'm also very satisfied with your choice. Queen Hilda chuckled. The beautiful left side of her face and the ugly right side of her face looked like chaos when she smiled. Boss Luo thought for a while and said, When I came here, I heard a lot of stories praising the two of you. It seems that stories are just stories. The poets are still used to beautifying them. So, what's your answer? At this time, Queen Hilda said indifferently, Tell me your request before my patience runs out. Boss Luo said with a serious face, I'm sorry, Your Majesty. You can't give me what I want. How about we change the topic? I've already returned the divine armor, made from the scales of the light dragon king to the dragon race. So, please don't interfere with my actions here. What do you think? No one can refuse me. Queen Hilda sneered. Even the gods can't. You foreign invaders can't either. King Amos frowned. It seemed that Hilda had already noticed this from the beginning. The main reason was to keep the foreign invaders here? Die. The Dragon Queen said calmly. Without the protection of the divine armor, she used her mind to condense the terrifying wind spears again. Without the divine armor, Boss Luo chose to activate the ability of his profession. Several layers of shields appeared in front of him and blocked the wind spears. Queen Hilda was a little surprised but not too surprised. Let's see how long you can struggle. I know the rules of the foreign invaders. You can't obtain power that surpasses the limit of this world. Queen Hilda dodged and appeared in front of Luochio. Her palm easily tore apart Boss Luo's layers of shields. Seeing the approaching palm of the Dragon Queen, Boss Luo had no choice but to take out the big sword that he just took back and slashed it. Aurora's Aster contained the attribute of dragon slaying, which shocked Queen Hilda. The three godly weapons directly slashed her palm, and sparks flew in all directions. Dragon-slaying weapon. Queen Hilda was even more furious. You deserve to die even more. The Dragon Queen became even more ferocious. Boss Luo took a few steps back, but in his heart, he called out to the white-clothed Araya who didn't reveal himself. Do you know who is the strongest swordsman in this world? The answer will come soon. Analysis. Up to date, the strongest swordsman is the first user of Aurora's Aster, the first human sword saint who killed the Light Dragon King, the first king of the kingdom, Elnis, King Griffith. Got it. You deserve to die even more. The Dragon Queen, who became even more ferocious, no longer wanted to defeat her opponent with her bare hands. She waved her hand, and a strange light sword appeared in her palm. As the light sword approached, Boss Luo blocked it with his sword and retreated a few steps. The Dragon Queen swung the light sword again, but this time, Boss Luo blocked it more skillfully, and this time, he stood firm. Queen Hilda was slightly surprised, but she didn't take it to heart. Just as she was about to use violence to break the skill, Aurora's Aster's blade burst out with a bright flash. Boss Luo made a move, like a swordsman who had been immersed in swordsmanship for decades. He had the momentum, and the power of Aurora's Aster from the weapon that killed dragons was also there. After the flash of light disappeared, the courtyard in front of the study room suddenly became quiet. The light sword in Queen Hilda's hand twisted and finally disappeared. Her arm drooped down, and fresh blood slowly dripped from her fingers. This is King Griffith's secret swordsmanship. How could he? King Amos, who was watching the battle, couldn't hide the horror in his eyes. The shock even made the king take 2 steps forward. King Griffith's secret swordsmanship was the secret of the Elnis kingdom. Every king could inherit it, but not every king could learn it, let alone use it to kill dragons. The other party was just an invader. King Griffith's secret swordsmanship, Aurora's Aster of the 3 divine weapons. This was the weapon that King Griffith used to kill the Light Dragon King. Could it be that today, Hilda would? No, Hilda was far more powerful than the Light Dragon King. In an instant, King Amos had already noticed something. It was because of the Dragon Emperor barrier. Hilda activated the Dragon Emperor barrier the moment she arrived in the capital, and sealed the whole capital. Such a huge barrier obviously consumed a lot of her power. Plus such a surprise move, the secret swordsmanship that suddenly appeared caught Hilda off guard. But Queen Hilda was obviously not someone who would bow down easily, especially because of this carelessness that caused her to be injured. The wound almost stopped bleeding in an instant, and Queen Hilda's eyes became calm. She no longer looked down on Roland. No wonder you said that I might not be able to kill you. But this way, I want to kill you even more. I won't allow your existence. You are the biggest threat to the dragons. Your Majesty, I have no intention of going against you. Boss Luo shook his head and lowered his sword. This kind of swordsmanship is only used to protect myself. If you think that it is a threat to you and the dragons behind you, I will forget about it. Like I said before, I have already returned the sacred armor, and I hope that your majesty will not mind my actions in the capital. What happened today is just a small interlude. What if I say no? Queen Hilda laughed coldly. As the most powerful dragon queen in the world, ever since she reached the top, she had never put anyone on the same level as her. Boss Luo did not say anything, and only looked at Queen Hilda calmly. Just a glance. What is this? The Dragon Queen's body suddenly trembled. For a moment she seemed to have returned to the place where she was born, or the moment when she just broke the dragon egg and brought the newborn dragon into this world. At that time, what she saw was the power of the previous Dragon Emperor. A kind of suppression that she could not resist at all came from her nature. She had no choice but to bow down. No matter whether it was her consciousness or her subconscious, she was frantically urging the thought, "Obey! Obey! 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 Obey!" As if all the strength in her body had been sucked out, the Dragon Queen suddenly slumped to the ground. With a thud, she fell into a sitting position in the middle of the courtyard. She subconsciously hugged her body, unable to stop the trembling of her entire body. I will forget this kind of swordsmanship. Luochu put away his weapon at this time, so I will have to bother you two tonight. Saying this, Boss Luo turned around and left, but before leaving, he looked at a certain direction intentionally or unintentionally. There, a pair of eyes that were peeping at everything in the dark suddenly became flustered. After a while, King Amos frowned and came to Queen Hilda, who was still sitting on the ground. The outsider who held Aster of Aurora had already left. Looking at Queen Hilda, who was still trembling slightly, King Amos squatted down and put his clothes on her body. "You are sick? At this time?" Queen Hilda subconsciously raised her head to look at the Yamos king, who was right in front of her, and pushed him away. However, she didn't use much strength, and only managed to push him to the ground. She looked down at her palm, and her fingers clenched a few times. She saw that her palm had started to rot. The rotten appearance was just like half of her cheek. Queen Hilda clenched her teeth and pulled King Amos to her side. She bit his arm, and drank the blood of King Amos. After a long time, the rotting of the queen's arm stopped. Not only did the rotting of her arm stop, even half of her face that was supposed to be ugly had recovered. It was a dreamlike beautiful face that could make men fall head over heels for her. After recovering, Queen Hilda was silent for a moment, and then slowly stood up. She scratched the place where she was cut by the dragon-slaying weapon and frowned. The dragon-slaying weapon has a poison that can make dragons despair. It should be affected. She shook her head, still unable to believe the fact that she fell to the ground because of a look from Roland. The Yamos king expressionlessly wiped the blood from the bite wound on his arm, pulled down his sleeve, and stood up. "This illness of yours really came at a bad time. After so many years, we still haven't found a cure." Queen Hilda coldly snorted and said, "It is because of this that I wanted to kill that guy." King Amos frowned and said, "The first invader?" Queen Hilda coldly said, "If it weren't for him, more than half of the dragon race wouldn't have died, and I wouldn't have been tormented by this curse. Laura told me that he appeared in the capital. Do you want to stand here, or find a place to rest?" King Amos said at this time, "The palace is still very chaotic. The appearance of the Dragon Emperor enchantment will make the whole royal city chaotic. You are the king, can't you handle this kind of thing?" Queen Hilda coldly snorted and said, "I'm going to see my daughter." Looking at Queen Hilda, who waved her sleeve and left, King Amos slowly sighed. How did he know the secret sword technique of King Griffith? How did he know the secret sword technique? The same question arose in the hearts of the spectators at this time. Mr. Varley had been lurking in the same place for a long time, until Queen Hilda left, until King Amos was far away, until there was no one nearby. Then he slowly revealed himself. "I have been in business for so long, but I have never obtained the secret sword technique of killing dragons." As he spoke, Mr. Varley suddenly took out a box from his arms. This was the child he took from his father, Max, in Locke's arms. Mr. Varley opened the box and saw a strange stone in the small box, a fragment of the stone engraved with special oracle bone inscriptions. "I am the first to arrive in this world." Mr. Varley shook his head, quickly put away the box, and then left. Before leaving, he couldn't help but mutter, "But Hilda's illness really came at a bad time. I didn't expect that my original plan would save the life of the opponent this time. It's really not perfect." Chapter 1850. Mr. Luo. Nan Xiaonan lifted the green cloak off her body and quickly got up. She was already 100 meters away from where she was lying and perfectly avoided the Dragon Queen's senses. Of course, the Dragon Queen never cared about the situation here, or rather, she never sensed anything. "This cloak suits you very well." Boss Luo, who came back, looked at it and said casually. Nan Xiaonan rolled up the cloak and asked quickly, "How was it? Did you run into any danger?" "It must have been very dangerous. The arrival of the Dragon Queen just now. I never thought that this world would give birth to such a powerful soul. It seems that this world has developed for a longer period of time than we thought." In fact, he and Nan Xiaonan did not have any discussion about the development time of this subworld. She did not know when she started to like to use the term "we." "I didn't encounter any danger." Luoqi waved his hand and smiled, "But I saw some interesting things. I think the direction of clearing the game is gradually clear." Nan Xiaonan opened her eyes wide and blinked. She looked a little dazed. "Are you hungry, Lady Nan?" "Hungry? Go and eat something." Boss Luo smiled and said, "I felt that I should reward myself tonight. Well, for people like me, if I want to lose weight or something like that, it should not be effective." The academic witch of the subworld immediately echoed, "Haha, actually I have this habit and I often worry about it. It seems that we are the same type, Mr. Luo." She said "we" again. They disappeared into the night, but the chaos in the palace did not completely calm down. Nan Xiaonan only cut off the control of the summoned monsters, but did not recall them. A huge figure suddenly emerged from the ground. It was the burning serpent that had first appeared in the depths of the palace. However, there were many wounds on the serpent's body. The instant the burning serpent escaped from the ground, Sword Saintly Yulo also broke out of the ground and chased after it relentlessly. This burning serpent's ability to travel underground was extremely powerful, so much so that Sword Saintly Yulo was able to slash his way over without being able to land a fatal blow. However, it seemed that the battle of attrition had almost exhausted the burning serpent to death. But right at that moment, a flash of light shot out and struck the head of the burning serpent. Just like that, the burning serpent collapsed right before Sword Saintly Yulo's eyes. Sword Saintly Yulo couldn't help but be startled. He looked in the direction of the flash, but he could only see the back of a figure that was about to disappear. He couldn't see the appearance of the person who had killed the burning serpent. "Thank you for your help," Sword Saintly Yulo shouted in the direction where the figure disappeared. After a while, he didn't hear any response. Sword Saintly Yulo couldn't help but frown at this moment. He muttered to himself in a low voice, "Could it be His Majesty's?" He and the other two sanctuary masters who were guarding Princess Carol had been stationed in the palace for quite some time. During this period of time, they had vaguely sensed the presence of a guard around King Amos. It wasn't any weaker than them, and it had a mysterious protective power that was far more profound. At this moment, the palace guards found this place. After seeing the burning serpent killed, they were all delighted. They also reported that the other senior demons that had appeared in the palace were all killed by a flash of light that suddenly appeared. All of them were killed in one blow. "Is His Majesty still safe?" Sword Saintly Yulo asked quickly after pondering for a moment. "His Majesty has already returned to his bedroom to rest." Then, Sword Saint paused and then said seriously, "What about the Empress?" I heard. At this moment, the guard suddenly replied in an unfathomable manner. She went to Her Highness' room. Sword Saint nodded silently. He looked up at the night sky. In the night sky, he could still vaguely see the faint light of the Dragon Emperor barrier. He couldn't help but frown. After leaving the order for the guards to deal with the corpses of the monsters in the palace, he went straight to King Amos's bedroom. At the same time, in Princess Carol's bedroom, Queen Hilda was currently sitting by Princess Carol's side, gently stroking the sleeping Princess Carol's cheek. Her gaze was filled with tenderness, and even more so, doting. "This damned curse," Queen Hilda said softly at this moment. Laura, the head maid, was currently kneeling in front of Queen Hilda with her head lowered. "I use too much serene flower," Queen Hilda suddenly said. "When danger comes, do you intend to let Carol die in her sleep?" Laura whispered, "I won't let Her Highness get hurt. I will only use my life as the last line of defense for Her Highness." Queen Hilda stood up and came in front of Laura. She reached out and lifted Laura's chin. Clenching it, she said indifferently, "I can smell a scent on your body that I hate the most. Moreover, there is also the scent of your pleasure." Slap. In the blink of an eye, Laura's cheek was greeted by Hilda's slap. Her entire body was sent flying, and she fell to the ground. Laura hurriedly got up and crawled to Queen Hilda's side. Her whole body trembled as she kowtowed in front of Queen Hilda. She was both frightened and flustered as she said, "Your Majesty, this is only for the sake of keeping that person here. I hope to buy more time so that Your Majesty can come as soon as possible." Laura has never thought of betraying her own race. "Then where is he?" Queen Hilda directly stepped on Laura's head, pressing it to the ground. "Where is Varley? You didn't manage to keep him, did you? I'm sorry. Next time I will." Queen Hilda didn't seem to listen. She gradually increased her strength, as if she intended to crush Laura's head. At this time, Laura, where did you die? Laura, come and tell me a story." Laura, Princess Carol's voice. Queen Hilda suddenly turned around and saw that Princess Carol was still sleeping. It turned out that she was just talking in her sleep. "I won't kill you." Queen Hilda took a step back and said indifferently, "For the sake of my beloved daughter." Laura heaved a sigh of relief. "But that doesn't mean that I won't punish you." Queen Hilda raised her hand, and a black light suddenly shot towards Laura. "Reflect on your actions." Laura's body trembled. She clenched her teeth and softly responded. Then, without raising her head, she slowly retreated out of the room. She didn't speak to anyone on the way back. When she returned to her residence, she directly fell to the ground, her whole body twitching as she let out a mournful scream. Her body and soul felt as if they were being bitten by countless poisonous insects. In just a few short breaths, her whole body was drenched in sweat. Queen Hilda's punishment had always been more terrifying than death. "Take me away. Take me away from here. Take me." After the double torture of soul and flesh, even a powerful dragon saint like her couldn't bear the pain and directly fainted. She collapsed to the ground like a pile of mud. In the underground cave, dust was scattered. And it wasn't just once. Tang Tianlin had been paying attention to the situation around him. He didn't know how deep underground this place was, but it was actually isolated from all sound. But there were slight vibrations coming from it. Did this mean that something was happening in the palace at this time? He already understood Norma's story. Just like that, after experiencing Princess Carol's humiliation, I was thrown out like trash. She quickly found a new plaything. This is really a bitter experience. Tang Tianlin looked at Norma's withered limbs and spine. This person's will to live was really strong. It was really unimaginable. But, how did you crawl down here? I have a beast that I raised. It was born as a monster and has a strong digging ability. No one knows of its existence. At this time, Tang Tianlin's expression couldn't help but change. He had been in this underground cave for some time, but he hadn't seen any beasts or monsters. There were only piles of bones. Bones? He suddenly looked over and was surprised to find a strange skeleton the size of a warhorse in the corner of the cave. It was obviously not a human skeleton. Could it be? Is it strange? I ate it. In order to survive. As long as humans want to survive, they will eat anything, even if it's their own family. Tang Tianlin suddenly stood up and pulled out his weapon without saying a word. But I won't eat you. Norma's voice sounded in the cave again. The voice came from all directions, like a tidal wave, one after another. Tang Tianlin actually felt dizzy from the shock, and he felt uncomfortable as his blood and qi stirred. I've lived enough. There's no point in living anymore. But I'm not satisfied. My pain, my resentment, my despair. I want revenge. However, Norma, who had been lying motionless on the ground, suddenly bounced up. At the same time, an invisible force directly imprisoned Tang Tianlin's entire body. Even with his Deathwalker profession ability, he was unable to move at this moment. What do you want to do? Norma was upside down at this time, directly pressing her head on top of Tang Tianlin's head. This is the heart of the sanctuary that I comprehended after experiencing the most despair in the world. But my body is no longer able to exert its power. Accept my power, the power of vengeance. Avenge me. The heart of the sanctuary will be like a curse, forcing you to walk down the path of vengeance. This will be your life's destiny. Kill Carol for me. Kill the royal family of Ennis. Kill the dragons of the continent. Kill all living things. Kill them all. Ha 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 ha. It appeared, the legendary adventure. It was like falling off a cliff, falling into a pool, or eating some strange fruit by mistake. You have obtained Norma's lifetime cultivation and the heart of the sanctuary. Level +1+1+1+1+1+1. Brave adventurer, you have triggered the ultimate mission of slaughter the dragons of the continent. I have faith in you. In this situation, and looking at Norma who was upside down holding his head, Tang Tianlin couldn't help but let out a classic curse. F***CK. +1+1+1+1+1 Sword Saint Leolo was standing in front of the door of King Amos's palace. He had been here for almost half an hour, but he hadn't been able to enter. Finally, a guard walked over and said respectfully, "Lord Sword Saint, His Majesty is already asleep. He probably won't see anyone. If there's anything, please come back tomorrow." Sword Saint Leolo glanced at the guard. The guard was so scared that he quickly lowered his head and said with a hint of panic, "His Majesty. After His Majesty wakes up, I'll tell him immediately." Leolo slowly exhaled and then looked at the door of the palace and said loudly, "His Majesty, I've been frightened tonight. Leolo's defense wasn't good enough, and I'm not up to the job of guarding the palace. Therefore, I request to return to the garrison division. I hope His Majesty will approve." Still silence. A tense atmosphere pervaded the air. The guards all around were looking at the kingdom's sword saint with fear and trepidation. They waited for a long time, but there was still no response from the Yamos king's chamber. "Thank you, Your Majesty." Finally, Sword Saint Leolo shouted and turned around to leave. Walking on the streets of the royal capital. Because of the curfew, the streets of the royal capital were very quiet. The appearance of the Dragon King's barrier only alarmed some powerful people in the royal capital. Of course, there were many powerful professionals. After all, there was the national tournament. Recently, the royal capital had been full of powerful people. However, the professionals obviously didn't want to clash head-on with Elnis's government. Therefore, when the curfew started, they stayed in their own places. "Where are we going?" Nan Xiaonan couldn't help but ask curiously. Although they said they were going to find something to eat, it seemed that it wasn't easy to find something to eat in such a quiet place. "We're here." Boss Luo stopped. "This is it." Nan Xiaonan looked over and saw the Lock's weapon shop. "This place, I think. I think I've been here before, Nan Xiaonan said after thinking for a while. But at this moment, Luo Qiu had pushed open the door of the weapon shop and walked in. Nan Xiaonan followed him without hesitation, but it was dark inside the weapon shop. Nan Xiaonan managed to find a tool to light a fire and an oil lamp, and lit the oil lamp. Just as she was about to ask why she was at the weapons store, she suddenly saw a figure sitting in front of the counter in the weapons store's lobby. It was a guy with a silver mask. He had been sitting there since the beginning and silently watched them enter. "We meet again." The man with the silver mask spoke first. Luo Qiu smiled. "Yes, we meet again. Mr. Zayart, good evening." Chapter 1851. She called this the attitude one should have. Regardless of who the other party was or what their purpose was, it was the right time to show that they were reliable companions. Therefore, Miss Witch from her subworld unsheathed her sword without hesitation. Oh, there was no sword, only a monster summoning scroll that looked like a short wand. But Lady Nan waved the scroll as if she was going to use it to smash someone. The pos was already in place, ready for battle. "Mr. Luo, who is this guy?" Nan Xiaonan asked quietly in front of Boss Luo. "A mister that I have seen a few times." Boss Luo smiled. "Don't worry, nothing will happen." Nan Xiaonan nodded her head, but she was still ready for battle. She should have the right attitude and continue to attack. The masked man sitting behind the counter of the weapon shop. Mr. Zayart said with interest, "Your companion seems quite reliable." The demoness of the Academy faction in his subworld almost raised her nose and praised in her heart, "This is a good wingman." The noncommittal boss Luo looked around at this time and said lightly, "Mr. Zayart seems to have just arrived. Who are you waiting for?" "I was thinking that whoever appeared in front of me first should be the person I am waiting for." Zayart sighed and said, "The weather is good tonight." "It is indeed good." Boss Luo nodded and said, "Mr. Zayart, why are you waiting for me here?" "Of course I am here to apologize." Zayart stood up, "For the trouble I have caused you." "What is the trouble Mr. Zayart is talking about?" Luo Qiu said calmly. Zayart said, "I was trapped in the cellar by Jilian. But the situation was quite dangerous at that time. The peace between man and nature from the security division broke in. I could only think of this method in a moment of desperation. As a result, you and Jilian were brought to the security division." Boss Luo said casually, "I heard that in the first palace assassination, the weapon used by the assassin was very similar to the one I lost. When you came to return my weapon yesterday, you didn't intend to frame me." "How could that be?" Mr. Zayart asked in astonishment. "Why would you think that? I left the mask just to confuse the peace between man and nature. Besides, you have nothing to do with the assassination, right?" Luo Qiu smiled. "Then you shouldn't come here. You should go to the security division." "Why?" Mr. Zayart asked curiously. "To turn yourself in, of course," Boss Luo said matter-of-factly. "Then you can clear up all the misunderstandings. Besides, as far as I know, Mr. Jilian should still be in the security division. He might even be interrogated severely because of Mr. Zayart's matter." Zayart said calmly, "This child is too naughty and too careless. It will be better for him in the future if he suffers a little." Boss Luo asked curiously, "Then what do you think he should do to be considered careful?" "The best way, of course, should be to directly hand me over to the security division after getting me," Zayart said calmly. Zayart said indifferently, "When a person is faced with suffering, they should do everything possible to push the suffering away from them. Even if there is only the slightest possibility that the suffering will befall them. If they want to live, they must first learn to be selfish and not be influenced by emotions." Boss Luo thought for a while and said, "According to what you said, why did you have to go to the palace to assassinate? This seems to go against your selfish statement." "Only for the sake of the greater good, personal selfishness can be abandoned." Zayart seemed to have his own unique theory. Jilian is not a person who can accept the greater good. He is more suited to be a carefree peddler who lives for himself, so he should learn to be selfish. What is the greater good in your heart, sir? Have you heard of the country, Cadias? Zayart suddenly asked. Boss Lua nodded. It is the first country to be destroyed by the kingdom of Elnis since King Amos ascended the throne. King Amos is the root of all evil, Zayart said calmly. Since the beginning of Cadias, the whole world has been caught in the flames of war for nearly 20 years. I've been traveling around the world, and I've seen too many destroyed cities and towns outside of the capital of the Elnis kingdom. I've also seen countless lonely souls wandering around in confusion. This world is not like this. The flames of war have subsided. Boss Luo said, King Amos's conquest has come to an end. Now, the new world should be left with vitality after the disaster. The evil of King Amos should be born in the soil of the new world and become a new kind. He won't. Zayart shook his head. After conquering the world, his next target will be the dragons of the continent. Sooner or later, he will start a war between the humans and the dragons of the continent. As far as I know, the queen of the dragons should be King Amos's wife. Zayart laughed and said, That man will never be willing to let himself be inferior to others. In order to seize the throne of the kingdom, he did not hesitate to give up his dignity and become the plaything of Queen Hilda of the dragon race. Then, in order to wash away this shame, he can also bury this world. Wait! At this moment, Nan Xiaonan suddenly interrupted Zayart's words. At this moment, Nan Xiaonan had brought a stool over from God knows where and was sitting. She was even holding a piece of melon fruit in her hands, and seemed to have already taken a few bites. Zayart frowned as he thought to himself, You should be quite unhappy to be interrupted. Nan Xiaonan said embarrassedly, I'm sorry for interrupting your conversation, but I'm more curious about something. No matter what you're talking about, the kingdom of Cadias that you mentioned at the beginning, what's your relationship with it? I am a woman, so I am more nosy. Besides, you were the one who brought up the kingdom of Cadias first, okay? You have successfully aroused my curiosity, but you did not mention your relationship with the kingdom of Cadias. This is your fault. Uncle, this is not the way to tell a story. Why are you looking at me like that? Nan Xiaonan felt a trace of murderous intent from the other party. She immediately let go of the fruit and waved the scroll, posing as a master. Unexpectedly, Zayart suddenly said indifferently, The map in your hand should be an item called the demonic map. There are a total of 72 high-level monsters sealed in it. You? How did you know? Nan Xiaonan could not help but open her mouth. This scroll was clearly the one she picked out from the pile of items that Luo the Almighty poured out. Was it the exclusive loot from the game chessboard? The demonic map is a secret treasure from the royal family of the former kingdom of Cadias. Zayart said calmly, Ever since the Cadias kingdom was destroyed, the demonic diagram has been lost. Although it can't be compared to the 3 godly weapons that have been passed down for generations, it is still the best weapon in the world. Nan Xiaonan subconsciously looked at the scroll in her hand. She did not expect it to have such a big background, but how could Zayart see through it at a glance? If you want to activate all the high-level monsters in the demonic map at once, you can't do it without the bloodline of the royal family of Cadias. Even if it is because of the power of the profession, it is still impossible. Zayart suddenly said at this time, Therefore, the demonic map, in the hands of professionals like you can be said to be a waste. Nan Xiaonan shrugged. It was a waste if it was not in her hands. But she had already understood some things. So, this Mister, you have a deep relationship with the destroyed royal family of Cadias? Zayart did not respond to this point. Instead, he said, I have already achieved my purpose of coming here today. Whether to stay in the king's city or leave the king's city is your own business. Then, good night. Zayart's figure flashed, the lights in the weapon shop's lobby swayed, and he had already disappeared. Nan Xiaonan frowned and subconsciously looked at Boss Luo, Mr. Luo, this person is pretending to be a ghost in front of you. Don't you plan to deal with him? Waiting for you to do it, Boss Luo said with a smile. Nan Xiaonan lowered her head and ate the melon. Well, if I meet him next time, I will deal with him directly. Boss Luo smiled casually. You sit down first, I will go inside and see what can be eaten. Nan Xiaonan nodded obediently. After Boss Luo left, she took out the demonic map, again, frowned and said to herself, This is the secret treasure of the royal family of Kadias? She was startled. That is to say, the items that we, as servants, kill monsters in this world are not actually made out of thin air, but something that originally existed in this world? They were just used by the chessboard? So, then chessboard's ability seems to be not as perfect as we thought? At this moment, some strange sounds suddenly attracted Nan Xiaonan's attention. She narrowed her eyes and listened attentively. In an instant, Nan Xiaonan quickly stood up and rushed into the courtyard behind the weapon shop. She saw a figure just jumped in from the outside. With the moonlight, Nan Xiaonan clearly saw a silver luster. A silver mask. The guy who jumped in from the outside, wasn't he Zayart who just left after showing off? Obviously, the other party also noticed Nan Xiaonan's existence at this time, and he could not help but stop for a moment. Then, his eyes revealed a murderous intent. What did I just say? Nan Xiaonan suddenly shuddered at this time. When I see you, I will directly. At this time, the demonic map directly opened its mouth and instantly rushed out several flashes of light from the map. At this time, at the moment when he was about to resist the flashes of light, he did not expect that the flashes of light suddenly turned into different figures. They were actually several high-level monsters with different appearances. One of the magical beasts even let out an ear-piercing sound that made him feel dizzy. In the next second, he was pressed to the ground by several high-grade magical beasts, unable to move at all. At this time, Nan Xiaonan whistled and praised in her heart. This demonic diagram is really a sneaky treasure. There are 72 high-level demons, and each of them has a different ability. Moreover, they are very practical. At this time, she walked to the front of the masked man, squatted down, and reached out to take off the mask, saying with a smile, I have a bad habit, that is, when I see someone wearing a mask, I want to take it off. I have nowhere to put my hands. The masked man just struggled for a few times, and the mask on his face was directly taken off by Nan Xiaonan. Under the moonlight and the lights in the room, a slightly pale but handsome face was immediately exposed to Nan Xiaonan's sight. Nan Xiaonan blinked at this time. Oh, not bad, unexpectedly young? The man was stunned at first, then frowned, as if he was thinking about life, and did not speak. Nan Xiaonan reached out and pinched his cheek. Yo, you're full of collagen. You look really young. It's a pity that you're a thief. It's your bad luck to meet me. At this time, Lady Nan, what are you doing? Mr. Luo. Nan Xiaonan directly stood up at this time, and excitedly walked to Boss Luo, who was still holding the ladle. I just peeled a Zayart who is not Zayart. I didn't lie to you, I said that I would peel him when I see him. Not Zayart who is not Zayart? Boss Luo could not help but smile. Nan Xiaonan shrugged and said, This guy is dressed like Zayart, but the soul waves are clearly two people, so it is not Zayart who is not Zayart. Well, I actually don't know who he is, but I have peeled him, that's it. Lady, don't talk about peeling. Boss Luo shook his head, passed by her, and walked to the small courtyard. This is the second chief of the guards division, Mr. Peace between man and nature. Let go first? The demonic diagram shook and pressed down on the man. Peace between man and nature's few small monsters instantly disappeared. Peace between man and nature frowned at this time, and exclaimed in a low voice, Demonic diagram. Why is it in your hands? Cough. Before he finished speaking, Peace between man and nature spat out a mouthful of blood, which splashed on the ground. Then, it was unknown whether it was because of anger or because he was originally seriously injured. After the mouthful of blood, he directly fell down. I didn't use too much strength, Nan Xiaonan explained without hesitation. It's this guy who looks good, but is useless. What do we do now? Go through the usual procedures, Boss Luo said casually. Nan Xiaonan stared blankly for a moment before nodding her head. Then, she quickly walked in front of Mu Tianren and squatted down. Then, she reached out her hand and began to touch his body. What are you doing? Boss Luo opened his mouth. Nan Xiaonan looked up. The usual procedures. Isn't it to pick up a corpse? Boss Luo shook his head. Send him in. Chapter 1852. It was Nan Xiaonan's idea to splash peace between man and nature with water, but it didn't work. When peace between man and nature woke up, it was already dawn. It was a little cold in Locke's weapon shop. Peace between man and nature felt the wetness on his body. He frowned and then found himself chained to a pillar. This was the cellar. He had been here before. This was the cellar where he found the silver mask and the sword. It was also Nan Xiaonan's idea to tie up peace between man and nature. She said it would make the atmosphere better. Boss Luo didn't care too much about it. I didn't expect you to have an accomplice. When peace between man and nature woke up, Nan Xiaonan was here. She had been guarding here all along. She was the only one who could do this kind of thing. Luoqiu had just arrived. Before that, he had been staying in Max's small workshop. When it was almost dawn, Nan Xiaonan vaguely heard the sound of iron being forged, but she didn't know what this Mr. Luo was doing in the small workshop. He should be a temporary companion. Boss Luo looked at peace between man and nature, who woke up and said indifferently. Peace between man and nature didn't seem to be too worried about being tied up. At least, he didn't show it. He chuckled when he heard that. It seems like you are the kind of person who likes to be serious about small things. Is there anything different? How do you feel? Are you better? Boss Luo directly changed the topic. Better than last night. Peace between man and nature said indifferently. Of course, if you want to save me, maybe you can make me feel better. Your temporary companion obviously didn't go easy on me. Maybe we should send you out to the streets? Nan Xiaonan suddenly interrupted and said, The Imperial Guards haven't had a single moment of rest all night. They've been messing around with the capital all night. They've been suppressing a bellyful of anger. If we throw you out, they'll definitely go crazy. Peace between man and nature said indifferently, If you want to send me out, you don't have to imprison me here. Nan Xiaonan sneered, Don't try to be tough with me here. Let me tell you, I've seen a lot of tough bones like you. If I really want to throw you out, there won't be any chance for you to turn the tables on me. Don't say you don't care. If you don't care, why are you wearing a mask? It's because you don't want people to know your identity. The second chief of the Royal Guards Division is actually a criminal in the palace. TSK, I don't know how many innocent people you'll be implicated if your identity is exposed. Peace between man and nature looked at Nan Xiaonan expressionlessly, unmoved. Nan Xiaonan suddenly narrowed her eyes, picked up a knife and touched peace between man and nature's cheek. You see, maybe among these innocent people, there will be the little girl who poured tea for you in the Royal Guards Division and secretly admired you, or the uncle who ate breakfast at the stall you passed by every day before you went to work, or even your neighbor's little daughter and her pet. As a member of the Royal Guards Division, you should know better than me how serious the crime of palace assassination is. Peace between man and nature was still expressionless, but she looked at Boss Luo behind Nan Xiaonan and suddenly asked curiously, Your companion is quite suitable to work in the Royal Guards Division. Are you interested in giving her up? Maybe you can talk to Lady Nan about this, Boss Luo said casually. Lady Nan and I don't have that kind of relationship. Peace between man and nature shrugged. On the other hand, Nan Xiaonan was quite hurt, but thinking that it was so easy to become the disciple of such a powerful person, even she herself wouldn't believe it, so she felt relieved. Should we throw him out? At this moment, Nan Xiaonan looked at Boss Luo and asked, when there are more people, we can hang a sign on him with some bad words about King Yamos. What do you think? I heard that this person is a student of the Sword Saint. Ask away if you have any questions. Peace between man and nature shook her head. If there's nothing else, I have to go back to work in the Royal Guards Division. As she said that, peace between man and nature struggled with both hands, and the iron chain on his body broke instantly. He stood up, cracked his neck, and said, if I can make it in time, maybe I can go back to my usual stall for breakfast. Nan Xiaonan was startled for a moment. This guy obviously looks like he's on the verge of death. How did he suddenly become so energetic? But Boss Luo was not surprised, and asked curiously, why do you want to assassinate the palace? Peace between man and nature smiled and said, of course it's to solve the case. Other than this, what other reason can there be? Solve the case? Nan Xiaonan suddenly widened her eyes. Peace between man and nature said indifferently, haven't you heard of luring the snake out of its hole? Since someone left the mask and the sword in the cellar and let us find it, and wanted to frame you and Jillian, if the assassin did not appear again, wouldn't it be a waste of the mastermind's plan? Unfortunately. He looked at Boss Luo. It's a pity that someone escaped at this time. The atmosphere suddenly became tense, and Nan Xiaonan gently turned the scroll in her hand. Peace between man and nature said at this time, the ones who escaped were 3 people with bad brains, a woman, a young man, and an old man. If you see them, you can tell us the Royal Guards Division, and we will send you a letter of gratitude. There's a chance. Boss Luo nodded. Peace between man and nature raised her eyebrows and said, is there anything else you want to ask? Boss Luo thought for a while and said, I don't know when Mr. Jillian will come back. When it's time for him to come back, he will naturally come back. Peace between man and nature smiled casually and said, why, do you think the people of the Royal Guards Division will confess under torture? Of course not. Boss Luo said, I believe that the master will not let this kind of thing happen in your jurisdiction. Peace between man and nature raised the corner of her mouth, did not say anything, and just jumped up from the cellar easily. Nan Xiaonan saw that Mr. Luo did not say anything, so she did not stop her. Mr. Luo, are we really going to let him go like this? She could not help but frown and ask. Otherwise? Boss Luo asked curiously, what do you think? Nan Xiaonan subconsciously said, could this guy actually have some sort of relationship with that Zayart from last night? Otherwise, they won't come here one after the other, right? Don't forget, Zayart said that he came to the weapon shop to wait for someone. Maybe he was actually waiting for peace between man and nature, but he did not expect that we would come earlier than peace between man and nature. Otherwise, 2 assassins almost appeared in this Locke's weapon shop. At the same time, isn't it too coincidental? Maybe they are still hiding some conspiracy. Lady Nan. Boss Luo smiled at this time. Do you still remember what we are going to do? What we are going to do is find the stone fragments. Nan Xiaonan simply said, is it possible that these 2 guys have something to do with the remaining fragments? Lady Nan, you really like to search for treasures. Boss Luo laughed involuntarily and said, what I mean is, before looking for the fragments, we are supposed to participate in this game as servants. You mean? Nan Xiaonan frowned and said, knock down the last guardian? Let me think about it. The guardian we are going to summon is the guardian of the kingdom of Elnis. Unless the kingdom is in a crisis, the royal family will not plan to summon the guardian. I understand what you mean. We don't have to do it ourselves. If there is someone here who wants to put the kingdom of Elnis in a crisis, we just need to give them a push. Maybe we don't even need to do anything and we can reap the benefit. So, whether it is Zayart or the peace between man and nature, as long as they can really assassinate King Amos or Princess Carol, it will only be beneficial to us. My God, Mr. Luo, I like your insidiousness. Boss Luo did not speak, but quietly looked at Nan Xiaonan. Nan Xiaonan suddenly swallowed and said, "I'm sorry, I said too much. Are you thirsty? I'll get you a glass of water." She immediately crawled out of the cellar as if she was fleeing. Later, Boss Luo returned to the ground, but walked into Max's small workshop. The furnace was boiling, and there were recently used blacksmithing tools next to it. Of course, the person who used them was obviously not Luochio. It was impossible for him to be blacksmithing, as he had never done such a thing. At this time, Araya, who was wearing a white dress, was holding an incomplete state of Aurora's aster in her hand. She dipped it into a bucket of silver liquid, and suddenly the mist was rolling. "How is it going?" Boss Luo came to Araya's side at this time. "Still need 29 special hammerings to completely remove the seal." Araya raised the sword in her hand and said slowly. She recorded all the data of this world, at least all the data before she was forced to enter the elven homeland. At that time, Aurora's aster already existed. Luochio nodded at this time. "I didn't expect to find all the required materials here. It seems that Mr. Max had planned to completely remove the seal before he died." Araya said, "The idea of removing the seal is correct, but there are 3 mistakes in the step. Speculation: because of the long time, Max didn't completely inherit the craftsmanship of his ancestor, Master Locke. Even some of the craftsmanship was derived from his own understanding." "Okay, I know you're great." Boss Luo suddenly rubbed Araya's head with a rare trace of affection. The white-clothed Alea merely blinked her eyes and showed no reaction. Then, she walked to the front of the platform and picked up the large iron hammer that was far from her size. She began hammering on the platform again. Does this count as unscrupulous employment of child labor? While thinking about this, Boss Luo came to a corner of the workshop. There was a shelf with sundries here. Standing in front of the shelf, Luochio's finger moved over the sundries one by one. Finally, it stopped in front of a small pot. He reached for it but didn't pick it up. He just turned the small pot. Rumble! The shelf in front of him made a grinding sound and then moved away little by little. At the same time, an entrance to the underground passage was exposed on the floor. There were stairs to go down. He looked at the entrance and suddenly said, "I'll go down and have a look. If Lady Nan comes, please deal with her. Also, be careful to hide yourself." Understood. It turned out that if they were deprived of their power, they were not much different from ordinary people. The trio in the castle. Dr. Gores and the others found that in this king's city, where professionals from all over the world mingled, they couldn't even do something as simple as sneaking in from the back alley of a restaurant. In the end, they were reduced to bullying the kitchens of ordinary families. They had never been so aggrieved. They were still shackled by the guards, which made it very inconvenient for them to move. Now, they had to hide from place to place. Dr. Gores, who was squatting on the ground and digging for a cornstalk left by an ordinary family, felt quite sad at this moment. "Maybe it's better for us to stay in the prison of the guards division?" "What are you talking about?" The servant girl shook her head. At this moment, Sneeve took out a kitchen knife from the kitchen. It seemed that he was going to use the kitchen knife to cut the special shackles of the guards division. Gores saw this and couldn't help but shake his head. He had seen this kind of shackles before. After all, he was a frequent visitor to the world of chessboard. He had heard of this kind of special tool that could restrict the ability of professionals even if he hadn't seen it before. If this thing could be cut open with a kitchen knife found in an ordinary family's kitchen, the prison of the guards division wouldn't be overcrowded all the time. As for the original professionals in this world, they wouldn't change their countenance when they heard about the guards division of King's City, right? "Sneeve, can't you stop for a while?" Snakel did not bother about him. He picked up the kitchen knife and directly chopped down on the shackles on his feet. Dr. Girls shook his head. "This fellow, you really don't die. F***CK? Clang! The sound of metal hitting metal was still vibrating in the air. However, the kitchen knife in Mr. Sneeve's hand had directly cut into the floor. Before that, The kitchen knife really cut open the special shackles directly. Perhaps it was due to the shock of this result. Mr. Snakel's jaw dropped as he stared in bewilderment. Suddenly, Dr. Gor's directly quivered and quickly crawled to Sneev's side. He took the kitchen knife from his hand and cut between Tina's legs without saying a word. The shackles were cut open. F***ck. Dr. Gor's repeatedly cursed. Every time he cursed, he cut out a knife. After a few times, the special shackles on the 3 people in the castle had been cut open one after another. The feeling of regaining professional power was so unreal that the 3 people were in a daze and couldn't say anything. Chapter 1853. Obtained a very sharp kitchen knife. Its grade is unknown. This is an emotionless kitchen knife. Because it used legendary grade forging techniques, it was inextricably linked to legendary grade weapons. So, this is really a very sharp kitchen knife. So, Dr. Gor's, who had become nimble again, put the kitchen knife directly into his trouser pocket, and then covered it with his clothes. What are you looking at, Sneeve? Are you still dissatisfied? It was like when Fat Tiger borrowed Xiao Fu's new remote control plane. Sneeve calmly looked back at Dr. Gor's, then said indifferently, I don't plan to continue to travel with you. The key is that I'm afraid you can't get rid of us so easily. Dr. Gor's smiled faintly. Don't forget, we have 2 here. No matter which one, they can suppress you. Nan Xiaonan leaving the team was fine. After all, she had defected from Wally's team. Gor's didn't trust her at all. It was better for her to leave the team and act alone. As for the boss Luo, Gor's couldn't keep him. However, Snakel's words made him feel that he did not need to be polite with this old fellow, even though he knew that Snakel always had the intention to betray him and was a bomb that could explode at any time. It was still better to keep an eye on him at all times. As you wish. Mr. Sneeve suddenly said indifferently, I don't want to continue this game. It doesn't matter to me whether I can leave the chessboard or not. Even if I have to be trapped in this chessboard world in the future, I can keep me. If you are not afraid that I will drag you down, then do whatever you want. Dr. Gor's couldn't help but open his mouth at this time. Mr. Wally has come to the chessboard world as a servant. Don't you plan to take revenge on him? Sneeve sneered. Following a fence-sitter like you, I think the possibility of revenge is already 0. Dr. Gor's was not angry. Instead, he said indifferently, I wonder if the grass growing on the wall has always been living well? Sneeve didn't say anything. He walked to the side and leaned against the wall as he watched Gor's and Tina. Doctor, what do we do next? Dr. Gor's said without thinking, there are Imperial guards outside. It's not convenient for us to move around. This family is just ordinary people. You go and control this family. We'll stay here for the next 2 days. We'll ask around and see what happens. I don't believe that Mr. Varley and our irresponsible captain will do nothing in the next few days. Tina suddenly smiled and said, Won't it be troublesome if we just control them? Dr. Gor's frowned and said, The origin of this kitchen knife is a bit strange. How can there be such a thing in the kitchen of an ordinary family? It's better not to complicate things. We've been unlucky enough recently. Just control it. Even if something happens, we still have room to deal with it. That's true. Sleeping under the bridge, they could encounter a murder case and then go to the guards' division prison. They were really hated by the goddess of luck. Then I'll go. Tina nodded unhappily and turned to leave through the window. When only Gor's and Sneeve were left, Dr. Gor's suddenly said, Sneeve, we don't have to be so unpleasant. What you've experienced before was only caused by Varley to satisfy his own desires. As for me, although I used to stand by and do nothing, I had no choice. After all, I was just a nobody who depended on Varley. I needed to protect myself. But it's different now. Even if I join him again, I can't change the outcome of my betrayal. So, the only chance we have to survive is to keep Varley in the chessboard world forever. Sneeve's eyes drooped as if he had fallen asleep. Dr. Gores suddenly said at this time. I know a kind of surgery that can completely remove some bad memories. If you can leave the chessboard, maybe you can use it. Mr. Sneeve still didn't respond. But his eyelids seemed to twitch slightly. Don't give me an answer immediately, Dr. Gores whispered. You should face yourself more than ever. If you really want to regret something, you should have atoned for your sins as early as that night. But you survived. Perhaps revenge is a good reason, but I think it's not the only reason you survived. What do you want to say? Sneeve suddenly opened his eyes. You know it in your heart. Dr. Gores shrugged. I said that if you want to do the surgery, I can do it for you after leaving here. Don't give me an answer in a hurry. With that, Dr. Gores looked outside the door of the kitchen and saw that Tina had come back. You're quite fast. Dr. Gores smiled. He's indeed just an ordinary person, Tina said indifferently. I don't even need to use my skills. Doctor, do you really think the owner of this house has a special background? Dr. Gores said casually. If there's nothing else, or we won't come back here again, you can do whatever you want. You're the best. Tina showed a sweet smile, and then threw something to Dr. Gores. He caught it subconsciously. What's this? I found it under the owner's bed. Although according to the situation of this house, it won't be a very good thing. But, as a long-lost taste, maybe it'll work? Dr. Gores looked at the thing in his hand. No doubt it was a bottle of wine. He indeed hadn't tasted this kind of nerve-numbing substance for quite a long time. As a vampire, perhaps he could only experience it again in the world of chessboard. It's too boring to drink it alone. Dr. Gores shook his head, and then found 3 glasses. He opened the bottle, poured the wine, and picked up one of the glasses. Let me think. Well, may we have an unlucky night? May we have such an unlucky night? Tina picked up one of the glasses and raised it. Then, the two looked at Sneeve. Sneeve frowned, picked up the glass, and drank it without saying anything. He was originally an alcoholic, so he couldn't resist the taste of alcohol at all. Dr. Gores tasted the liquid in the glass as if he was tasting blood. Oh, this should be fruit wine. It's great, this taste. The vampire's body is completely free from the taste. It's really great, this feeling of drowsiness, this. Dr. Girth suddenly felt that something was wrong. He suddenly felt lightheaded, and had to hold onto the table with both hands to stabilize himself. But at this moment, Snake had already fallen head first onto the floor. This wine. You! Dr. Gores was shocked, but now he was seeing stars and his brain was fainting. He looked at the smile on Tina's face, and then he lost consciousness and fell to the ground. Thump! The glass fell to the ground, and Dr. Gores was motionless. The smile on Tina's face disappeared. She indifferently kicked Sneeve and Gores on the ground with her leg, then walked to the door and opened it slowly. Outside the door, there was a young man with a short stature, dressed like a noble, standing. It was young Wally. Well done, you deserve to be my favorite maid, Tina. The maid laughed at this time. Master should often say the same words to my sister, right? What's the difference? Young Wally chuckled. Tiff and you are one and the same. When will they wake up? If there's no accident, they will wake up in about an hour. Then I'll have to move faster. Young Wally narrowed his eyes and walked to Dr. Gores and Sneeve. He directly grabbed Gore's hair and lifted Gore's head. Gores can actually do a lot of things. Most of the research in my castle was done by him. I really wanted to put him in an important position, but unfortunately, he was sent by my sister. Tina couldn't help but be stunned behind him. At this time, she couldn't help but think of the name of Dr. Gores on the chessboard. Treacherous traitor. A lock's weapon shop. It was completely bright, and the sun had just risen. Nan Xiaonan didn't get close to the small workshop in the courtyard. When Boss Luo came to the weapon shop with the big sword made by Araya, Nan Xiaonan was dozing off at the counter. Magically, Boss Luo saw something like a bubble on Nan Xiaonan's nose, the kind of bubble that made people want to burst. Bang! Suddenly, Nan Xiaonan knocked on the counter and immediately woke up. "Mr. Luo, you're awake. What time is it?" "About 8 or 9 in the morning." Boss Luo calculated the time. "I'm going out, Lady Nan. Do you want to come with me?" "I'm afraid you'll lose me," Nan Xiaonan said pitifully, "so I'd better follow you." "Then let's go." Boss Luo smiled. In fact, he got along well with Nan Xiaonan, but she was a cheerful temporary companion. "Where are we going?" Boss Luo said. "To find the truth of Mr. Max's murder." Nan Xiaonan was stunned. Before she dozed off, she was still thinking about how to solve the crisis of the Kingdom of Elness, but after she woke up, it suddenly became the truth of the murder. "Wow, Mr. Luo, your thinking is really good, isn't it? Can I go wash up first before going out?" Nan Xiaonan rubbed her face and said, "I'm afraid I'll embarrass you if I walk on the street like this." "Go, I'm not in a hurry." Luoqia nodded and then said, "But I believe that no matter who is around Lady Nan, I don't think they will think so." Nan Xiaonan suddenly blinked and said, "Mr. Luo, are you praising me? You think so too?" "Kind of," Boss Luo said casually. "Usually, the human's definition of ugly is relatively similar, not too different." She knew that she should stop before going too far, so she showed a happy smile and stretched. "I feel that my luck will be better today." When the door of the room opened, Ji Lian rushed forward, but in an instant, he was pushed back into the room by a gentle force. Ever since he was brought into the guards division and interrogated, he was brought to this room. No one came to see him again. Aside from the food that would be sent to him regularly, he had no contact with the outside world during this period of time. Ji Lian, who staggered to the ground, quickly got up, and saw the Minister of Peace between man and nature coming in with a small bag. Ji Lian said with some anger, "Sir, why did you keep me here? I've said many times, the thing was left by Uncle Zayart, and the mask was also worn by him. This matter has nothing to do with Mr. Luo, let him go quickly." "Have you eaten anything?" The Minister of Peace between man and nature put the small bag on the table. "It's the best place to make steamed buns on the street outside the headquarters of the Guards Division. They sell 10 steamers a day, and you can't buy it even if you have the money. Eat it while it's hot." "You're welcome, I'm not hungry, thank you." This place is of the highest standard in the Guards Division. The Minister of Peace between man and nature said at this time, "Generally, only the nobles who are of great suspicion and have to be brought back to the Guards Division for interrogation will be arranged to live here. Did you sleep well last night?" "I'm poor, so I'm not used to living here." The Minister of Peace between man and nature did not mind. She sat down, opened the bag, took a steamed bun and slowly ate it. "Yesterday's interrogation was a little incomplete. I'll record some questions. You sit down first." Ji Lian turned his eyes and looked at the door that was not closed. The Minister of Peace between man and nature suddenly said at this time, "If you really don't want your Mr. Luo to suffer, it's better to cooperate. This is the Guards Division, we have a lot of ways to deal with uncooperative suspects." Ji Lian frowned and could only sit down silently. The Minister of Peace between man and nature then asked indifferently, "How old are you?" 17. Less than 18. Ji Lian said reluctantly, "I don't know the specifics." "How old are you? You don't know yourself?" "I'm an orphan, adopted by my old man. How would I know when I was born?" "You've never seen your parents?" The Minister of Peace between man and nature stared at Ji Lian and asked slowly, "Any relatives?" "No." Ji Lian answered rather impatiently, "Sir, do these questions have anything to do with my old man's death? Does it have anything to do with Uncle Zayart's matter?" The Minister of Peace between man and nature shook his head at this time, but suddenly asked coldly, "Do you feel that you and I are very similar?" Ji Lian suddenly opened his mouth and subconsciously said, "Sir, your brain is fine? When you're agitated, a blood-red mark will appear on your arm. Do you know that?" The Minister of Peace between man and nature asked again. "You? How do you know?" Lien could not help but frown. Because I can do it too. The Minister of Peace between man and nature directly pulled up his sleeve at this time. A blood-red mark, at this time, appeared on his arm little by little. Chapter 1854. The celestial being Mu Lien didn't look much older than him. About 6 or 7 years older. Facing peace between man and nature, who had the same characteristic mark as him, Lien was startled at first, then he frowned and said, What does this mean? Are you trying to say that you have something to do with my life? You're still calm. Peace between man and nature smiled and said, You didn't make a fuss or become agitated, that's good. So? Lien frowned again. Peace between man and nature slowly rolled up his sleeves. This mark is a good imitation. It comes from a very special bloodline, and only the people of a special tribe living in the highlands will have it. Highlands? Lien carefully read the name of the place. Where is the highlands? In the west of the world, it's a place higher than the highlands. Legend has it that as long as it's night there, you can reach out and touch the stars. Peace between man and nature chuckled and said, Of course, it's just an exaggeration, don't take it seriously. Lien didn't want to joke. At his age, he had already tried his best to stay calm at this moment. From the highlands? Are you sure? It's just a mark. You doubt it? Peace between man and nature looked at him. Lien's reaction was a bit cold, which was the most negative of all his predictions. Lien shook his head and said subconsciously, No, it's just that I don't know what to do. He lowered his head and then said in a low voice, I've already gotten used to my current identity. Perhaps in the past, I had doubts and resentment about who I was, where I came from, whether I had any relatives in this world, why did they abandon me and so on. But now these are very far away from me and they're very strange. In fact, they're so strange that I'm a bit resistant. Peace between man and nature was silent for a while. I'm telling you this not because you have to admit your identity. I'm just telling you where the origin of our people is and what kind of place it is. You don't have to look for it, but you can't not know its existence. This is our belief in the highlands. Lien nodded subconsciously. Peace between man and nature had suddenly revealed his mark and told him that he was from the same race as him. From the death of his father Max to the recognition of peace between man and nature, everything had happened too quickly. He felt as if his world was undergoing an earth-shattering change. It was so intense that he was at a loss for what to do. How did all this happen? You should stay here for the next few days, the director of peace between man and nature said. This is the safest place for you. Even the palace's imperial guards can't break through the gates of the guards division. When Max's case is over, I'll take you to the highlands. You don't have to call yourself a descendant of the highlands, but you have to go to the highlands at least once in your life. It seemed that Lien could not find any other way to deal with it other than to accept it. He did not answer, and could only silently accept the arrangement of peace between man and nature. But the young man still wanted to do something, perhaps to fight against his violently shaking world. What else do I have to do? Dad's case, Uncle Zahiat's matter and myself? You don't have to do anything. The director of peace between man and nature said indifferently, Eat well here, sleep well. In the future, if you have the chance, maybe you can have a few more children. Why? Lien opened his mouth. This director of peace between man and nature was actually quite difficult to grasp. Because the descendants of the highlands, perhaps only you and I are left. The director of peace between man and nature smiled and said, I probably won't be able to leave behind any descendants in this lifetime, so the responsibility of not letting the bloodline of the highlands fall on you. Lien did not have time to ask any more questions, such as whether peace between man and nature knew about his birth parents, before the director of peace between man and nature had already left the room. Lien sat there in a daze. He didn't know how long he had been sitting there. He suddenly rubbed his cheeks. He suddenly missed the old days. He remembered that Locke's arms shop hadn't been open for business for a few days. My lord. My lord. Along the way, the guards greeted the director of peace between man and nature. In fact, other than the second-in-command, the director of peace between man and nature had another identity in the guards division: junior commander. The guards division was founded by the Blade Master of the kingdom, Euro. From the beginning, it was completely independent of all the systems in the kingdom, and directly reported to King Amos. As the Blade Master's only student and successor, peace between man and nature had long been regarded as the next chief of guards. Therefore, it was not an exaggeration to say that the guards division was peace between man and nature's back garden. However, this student of the Blade Master still liked to be called the second-in-command. He also liked to walk alone on the streets of the royal capital, strolling around when he had nothing to do, and catching small thieves when he was bored. Peace between man and nature returned to his office. Just as he was about to push the door open and enter, he suddenly paused. Then, he slowly exhaled, pushed the door open, and walked in. The first thing he saw was a familiar figure. The Blade Master. Euro teacher, you have time to come back to the guards division? Peace between man and nature gently closed the office door. At this time, the Blade Master was standing in front of the window, and from here, he could see most of the guards division. I have resigned from His Majesty. From now on, I will take over the guards division again. This is a good thing. Peace between man and nature said without batting an eyelid. I have a bad temper, and I am not a talent for management. If the guards division is handed over to me, it will become a concentration camp for hooligans. Sword Saint Yulo was clearly not the type to joke around, but he especially liked this student of his. He waved his hand and said, I heard that you caught a few people for Max's case, but they ran away in the end. Peace between man and nature shrugged. Teacher, there is a secret passage in the guards division prison that has been open for more than 10 years. Just like how you can't imagine that the Hammer King, Max, would be killed and left on the streets of the royal capital. There is still one who is locked up. Blade Master Euro suddenly asked. Peace between man and nature said, this person is Max's adopted son. I was worried that the murderer might harm him, so I protected him. After all, we still don't know why Max was killed. Blade Master Euro gave peace between man and nature a deep look and suddenly said, How long has it been since we last practiced swordsmanship together? Peace between man and nature said seriously, It has been more than a year since teacher was summoned to the palace by His Majesty. The Blade Master nodded and then said, Now that teacher has time, let's test your progress in the past year. Then I will have someone prepare the training hall. Peace between man and nature said directly. No need. The Blade Master said indifferently, Let's do it here. You have reached the edge of the Saint Realm a long time ago, but breaking through is not something that can be done overnight. Let me see how sharp your sword has become. As soon as he finished speaking, a sharp feeling, as if it could directly cut a person in half, instantly spread from peace between man and nature. Faced with the Blade Master's sudden test, the Guard Division's vice-chairman couldn't help but sweat. A moment later, peace between man and nature collapsed to the ground, sweating profusely. Teacher, you're still as strict as ever. He panted heavily. The Blade Master stood with his hands behind his back, but his expression unconsciously became stern. Your sword is in disorder. You have the intention to kill, and this is something that happened in the past day. You haven't had the intention to kill for many years. In this world, there is only one person who can make you want to kill. Peace between man and nature was silent, and only stared at the ceiling of the office with lifeless eyes. Blade Master Euro sighed at this time and said softly, It seems that I made the right choice in resigning. He glanced at peace between man and nature, and saw that he had no intention of getting up, so he said indifferently, I haven't been back for a long time. I want to see how the guards are lax. Euro left the office, and peace between man and nature suddenly sat up, but said to himself, "In the afternoon, let's eat buns." Royal Palace, Great Hall. King Amos had been listening to the discussion on the throne for most of the morning. The attack on the palace last night could not be concealed, not to mention that the Dragon Queen Hilda's Dragon King enchantment was still covering the whole king's city. How could the lords and ministers sit still at home? They were already waiting outside the palace gate at dawn. It must be the remnants of the other countries. I have said before that we can't relax the pursuit of the remnants of the other countries. But look at the guys in the military department, they haven't fought for years. How lazy are they? Your Majesty, the palace has been attacked one after another. Isn't it the negligence of the intelligence department? These guys only know how to use the intelligence in their hands to secretly control the kingdom's economy? I have said before that this national competition should not be held. Now that professionals from all over the world have gathered in the king's city, we don't know how many remnants of the other countries are hiding among them. If we don't expel these professionals, I'm afraid the assassinations will not stop. Your Majesty, are you going to let Her Highness do whatever she wants? Your Majesty. This impassioned voice finally made King Amos move on the throne. He knocked his head a little and yawned lazily. What did you just say? I didn't hear you clearly. I really didn't sleep well last night. Your Majesty, you were attacked by an assassin and should have been resting. Instead, we came to the palace to seek an audience we really shouldn't have. But now that the situation in the king's city is changing, we really have no choice but to do so. Your Majesty, please forgive us. The one who spoke was a fair-minded old minister. I'm asking what you just said. I just didn't hear you clearly. King Amos rubbed between his eyebrows and yawned again. Who wants to listen to you? If you really feel that you are disturbing me, you can go to the prison of the Guards Division and stop your salary for this year as a supplement to the kingdom's finances. The old minister said excitedly, Your Majesty, as long as we can stop this ridiculous competition and expel those professionals with ulterior motives, let alone the prison of the Guards Division and the suspension of my salary, even if you want me to die, what is there to be afraid of? Then you can go to hell. The head fell to the ground and blood splattered everywhere. The faces of the ministers were suddenly stained with a little bit of warm blood. They stared blankly at King Amos, who was coldly watching all of this from the throne. However, the one who made the move was obviously not King Amos. It was a figure who had appeared in the conference hall without anyone noticing. The Dragon Queen and the only queen of the kingdom of Elnis, Hilda. Dragon Queen Hilda walked slowly into the conference hall. She walked past the head of the old minister and said calmly, The national competition is what Caro wants to see. If I say let it continue, then let it continue. If anyone has any objections, I'll make a necklace of human heads. The ministers felt a chill down their spines and didn't dare to raise their heads to look at the Dragon Queen. Queen Hilda looked at King Amos and said calmly, Amos, it seems like you're not very good at managing your own kingdom. Is this what you mean by listening to the voice of the people? King Amos smiled and said, Hilda, you have to know that they can't represent the voice of the people. Look, I've been dozing off for the whole morning, haven't I? Queen Hilda said calmly, No matter what, the national competition will continue as scheduled. Before that, as long as the Dragon King enchantment still exists, no one is allowed to leave the royal city, let alone expelling the professionals. I'll pay a visit to the nobles who have a lot of voices. After saying that, the Dragon Empress turned around and left, leaving behind the officials who were all silent out of fear. King Amos walked down from the throne and asked calmly, Is there anyone else who wants to continue the meeting? The ministers looked at each other, and finally, the conference hall became silent. King Amos nodded and pointed at the corpse on the ground and said, He's loyal, so he should be buried. Bury him. The national competition will continue as scheduled tomorrow. King Amos left the ministers. In the end, the ministers felt that it was pointless to stay in the main hall, so they could only leave without making a sound. "Mr. Luo? What's the matter?" On the streets of the royal city, it was obviously livelier than yesterday, but there weren't many merchants shouting. Instead, there were more voices of discussion. They were discussing the Dragon King enchantment that covered the royal city. The news of the Dragon Queen's arrival had already spread throughout the streets. Now, the whole royal city was filled with an uneasy atmosphere. Nan Xiaonan followed Boss Luo out and had been walking around for the whole morning. He said that he was looking for the truth behind Max's murder, but Nan Xiaonan felt that this Mr. Luo seemed to be walking around aimlessly. "We've been looking for the whole morning, do you have any leads?" Nan Xiaonan had to force herself to ask. "The case of Max's murder." "Not yet," Boss Luo smiled and said, "but the truth won't automatically fall to where you're sitting, right? If you walk around more, you should be able to find something. Probably." "Ha. Ha ha." Nan Xiaonan shook her head and sighed, but at this moment, her gaze suddenly froze. "And Mr. Luo? Aren't they?" She saw the trio from the castle walking towards her. Chapter 1855. The population of King City was now exploding. Among so many people, it was really a rare fate for acquaintances to meet each other. Of course, they should have been together. Kitchen knife. Listening to Dr. Gores and the other two talk about their experience after the prison break, Boss Luo was quite curious about the details of the kitchen knife. But Dr. Gores held this kitchen knife very tightly. Even when he took it out, he didn't let it go. It was this kitchen knife Boss Luo picked up on the street that day and met Jillian because of this kitchen knife. It was made by Max himself, so Boss Luo wasn't too surprised that it could cut open the shackles of the garrison division. Luoqiu didn't take the initiative to mention that he was working for the truth of Max's murder at this time. He was just curious about what the castle trio would do next. "We plan to sign up for the competition," Tina said slowly. "This is the only way we can get in touch with Princess Carol. However, it doesn't look good now. Today, the most talked about thing in King City is the arrival of the Dragon Queen Hilda. Mr. Luo, we are all in the same team. You should find a way to win this game with us." Among the castle trio, Dr. Gores usually took the lead to speak. It was rare to see Tina, as a maid, leading the conversation. Perhaps it was because Dr. Gores didn't want to talk to Boss Luo anymore. Nan Xiaonan looked at the castle trio at this time, and then looked at Mr. Luo. She didn't think about it and stood on Mr. Luo's side. The witch of her subworld, who was used to big storms and big waves, didn't care about the time spent in the chessboard world. Her life had been long. The decades in her memory were really a blink of an eye. If Mr. Luo planned to stay here for a long time, she would be more than happy to see him. Only a long-term company could conquer a person's inner sanctum. Perhaps as a true companion, or as a close friend, or as two people with a closer relationship. She was the one who said that she was going to hug his thigh. No one could stop her. "Miss Tina looks a little anxious." Boss Luo thought and said, "Did something happen?" Tina nodded. Presumably, Mr. Luo should also know that Mr. Varley has come to King City. He is obviously with Miss Gong Lina's follower. Even we don't know how deep Mr. Varley's business in this chessboard world is. If we can't pass the game with Mr. Varley one step earlier, I'm afraid there will be many variables. You know, there are still many things we don't know about this world. Okay, let's participate. So, to Wally's reality we are like, what did you say? Boss Luo smiled. Okay, let's take part in the competition. You? Tina's rhythm seemed to have been disrupted. For a moment, she actually forgot what she was supposed to say. Shouldn't I? Boss Luo asked curiously. No. Tina had to shake her head and said subconsciously, if so, then It seems that tomorrow's competition will be held as scheduled. Boss Luo immediately interrupted again. Since we will participate in the competition under our own names, let's meet on the stage after the audition. Lady Nan and I have something to do, so we won't disturb you. Okay. The maid felt that she couldn't say no. She just nodded silently until Boss Luo and Nan Xiaonan disappeared in the vast crowd. Dr. Gores gently patted Tina's face at this time with an expression that said, "Now you know the scary part of this guy." Tina was silent, and Mr. Sneeve frowned. "What's so scary about him?" Dr. Girls said calmly. "You'll find that it's actually hard for you to refuse any of his requests. If he makes a request, it's as if there's a mysterious force controlling your feelings. So, it's not because I like to be in the limelight that I take the initiative to negotiate with him every time. It's just that I know that I can do a better job than all of you when facing such a terrifying situation." "Stop pretending to be mysterious," Sneeve said indifferently, but no one knew whether he was talking about Gores or their temporary team leader. Gores ignored him. "Since he agreed to participate in the competition, the next thing will be easy. With the ability he obtained in the chessboard world, it should be easy for him to enter the finals. No matter what, as long as one of our team can come into contact with Princess Carol, our plan can be carried out." Dr. Gore's plan was actually very simple. That was to find a way to get close to Princess Carol and poison the princess. Only he, Gores, had the ability to detoxify the poison. At that time, he would appear as the mysterious healer and announce that he had cured Princess Carol. That way, he would be able to walk around the palace openly. As for how to summon the kingdom's guardian, he would have many more options to choose from. Gores suddenly thought of this plan after he woke up from his drunken stupor last night. He almost didn't receive any objections and directly made the decision. As for the drunken stupor, although he was puzzled, Gores checked the information after he got drunk and didn't find anything wrong. Although he still had a lot of doubts in his heart, he could only temporarily attribute it to the bottle of old wine hidden under the bed. It was really old wine, it was strong enough. "Let's not talk about it anymore. Since there's still some time, I have to quickly search for the necessary ingredients to make the poison. The capital is so big, I should be able to find them." Dr. Gores smiled and said, "I'll let you know how lucky it is to have a doctor in our team." "You're so reliable, Doctor." Tina looked at him with a face full of admiration. Dr. Gores said, "We shouldn't stay on this street. Perhaps Varley is hiding somewhere, spying on us." "He's already been here," Tina thought to herself. "You've obtained undead Norma's Heart of Sanctum and all her skills. You've opened the door to the sanctum. The Death Walker profession has been completed and you've become the Saint of Death. Norma used her soul as the price to activate the curse on you. The conditions to remove the curse are: kill Princess Carol, kill King Amos, and bury the entire royal family of the Kingdom of Elnis. The time limit is 1 year. If you fail after 1 year, the curse will activate and you will become a undead like Norma. Undead Norma still has something to say to you before she dies. Do you want to hear it? I don't King want to hear it." Tang Tianlin, who had just woken up from his muddle-headed state, was instantly filled with notifications from the chessboard. After removing a bunch of useless information such as profession abilities and leveling up, he knew that he had been cursed. Old Tang was furious. Undead Norma was unable to say her last words. She died with regret. Tang Tianlin opened his mouth subconsciously. He looked at Norma, who had widened her eyes and opened her mouth slightly. She seemed to have something to say, but he couldn't find the words to curse. This guy was arranged to die just like that. He didn't even have time to say his last words? Wait, what did he want to say to me? Tang Tianlin couldn't help but frown and show a hint of anxiety. At least let me know what he wanted to say in the end. However, only Tang Tianlin's voice was echoing in the underground cave of the palace. There were no more notifications from the chessboard. After waiting for a long time, Tang Tianlin knew that he couldn't wait any longer. He looked at Norma, who had died with her eyes wide open, and could only sigh. Then, he buried Norma hastily and crawled out of the cave. What surprised Tang Tianlin was not that it was already dawn outside. It was that no one seemed to have entered the room he was in since last night. He tried to open the window and found that there were still Princess Carol's personal guards standing guard outside. It was the same ones from last night. "What's the matter?" Hearing the movement, the guard turned around and asked in a deep voice. Tang Tianlin said tentatively, "It's dawn. I want to eat something?" "When it's time, a maid will bring you food." The guard said indifferently, "If there's nothing else, stay in the room and don't come out." Tang Tianlin had to ask again, "When can I be summoned by Her Royal Highness?" The guard said indifferently, "When Her Royal Highness wants to see you." After saying that, the guard closed the window directly. Tang Tianlin couldn't help but open his mouth. It seemed that he had been underground all night and hadn't been discovered. At this time, after learning about what happened to Norma, Tang Tianlin no longer had the initial idea of coming in contact with Princess Carol. Based on what happened to Norma, it was likely that the champion of the battle arena had been reduced to Princess Carol's plaything all along. If he wasn't played to death, then he was lucky enough to survive and become the princess's personal guard. Tang Tianlin had long felt that these guards were somewhat unusual. They seemed to lack emotions and were quite rigid in doing things. Let's see what skills the new profession has after breaking through. Sanctum? Tang Tianlin had to sigh. After inheriting Norma's power, how much his capital to survive in the chessboard game had increased. That's not right. Can the servant's profession continue to improve after reaching the upper limit? Tang Tianlin was startled at this time. Isn't this breaking the fixed rules? Tang Tianlin looked at his hands subconsciously at this time and muttered to himself, "I always feel that even if I face Wally now, I can still—" At this moment, the sound of footsteps came from outside the room. After breaking through the profession, Tang Tianlin found that his hearing had become extraordinary. He almost didn't think about it and instantly launched a new skill. Aura elimination. This almost instinctive operation made him look sharp in an instant. Compared to yesterday when he defeated his opponent in the battle arena, he was a bit sharper. But it wasn't the appearance of a sanctum. At this time, a beautiful woman pushed the door and came in. The woman's face made Tang Tianlin lose his mind for a moment. But his mind had always been firm. "Are you the new champion of the battle arena?" The beautiful woman at this time said indifferently, "The momentum is not bad, the limit of the profession. It seems that the battle arena has indeed sent a very good talent this time." "You are Her Highness the Princess?" Tang Tianlin asked tentatively. "My name is Laura, the head maid of Her Highness." The beautiful woman. Laura at this time said indifferently, "I came here to tell you that Her Highness the Princess will be meeting with Her Majesty the Empress in the next few days, so she has no time to meet you. So, now there are two arrangements for you, it's up to you to choose." "Miss Laura, please speak." Laura said, "First, you can continue to stay in the palace. Her Highness the Princess will find time to meet you after the national competition. Second, you can leave the palace and participate in the national competition as a seeded player. Perhaps you can win the favor of the princess as the champion of the national competition." "I choose the second one." Tang Tianlin thought for a moment and said. Laura looked deeply at Tang Tianlin, then nodded and simply said, "Someone will arrange for you to leave the palace. So be it." "Miss Laura, please take care," Tang Tianlin said rather modestly. Not long after, a maid came and gave Tang Tianlin a token to directly advance in the national competition. Then she had two guards send Tang Tianlin directly out of the palace. This trip to the palace was completely contrary to his original intention. On the main street, Boss Luo suddenly stopped. In this regard, Nan Xiaonan struggled for a moment. She struggled whether she should pretend that she didn't notice and directly bump into Boss Luo, or whether she should follow suit. According to the practice of the scholarly ladies, there was no doubt that the first one was the correct way. So, the struggle instantly came to an end. As the saying goes, as long as you have the courage, you can have a maternity leave tomorrow. At this moment, the witch of the subworld's academic school suddenly took a bigger step and was about to bump into Boss Luo's back. She had to adjust the angle. It would be best if she could use her soft part to accidentally hit Boss Luo. Lady Nan, be careful. A burst of coolness. Nan Xiaonan at this time opened her eyes wide and subconsciously raised her wet head. She saw an old woman holding a basin and complaining, "What are you looking at? Didn't you see the water warning downstairs? I just want to bump into Boss Luo like a scholarly lady. There's a clothing store over there." Boss Luo comforted her, "Let's go there. You'll catch a cold." Nan Xiaonan reluctantly nodded. At this time, Boss Luo suddenly said, "It's better to buy a set of men's clothes." End of chapter. Chapter 1856. Without any hesitation, Nan Xiaonan, who had changed into men's clothes, walked into Boss Luo's sight. She completely agreed with the saying that changing clothes could arouse the opposite sex, especially when she violently tore open the loose men's clothes and exposed her body to the air. It would bring a strange sense of invasion. "How do you feel?" Nan Xiaonan straightened her chest and asked. She wasn't big, but it wasn't that she didn't have any. On the contrary, she was actually fleshy. It was just that she looked skinny, but the shape and feel were really good. When she first came to this world, she had already checked her new body. Almost there. Boss Luo sized her up. Almost there. Nan Xiaonan could not help but be stunned. Luoqiu handed her a palm-sized crystal at this time. Nan Xiaonan held it in her hand without thinking and asked curiously, "What is this?" "Phantom crystal," Boss Luo said simply. "It's used to specify a person's appearance and then imitate it on your body. You can simply understand it as a disguise." "And then?" Nan Xiaonan was still a little confused. Luoqiu smiled and said, "Next, I hope Lady Nan can pretend to be Max and walk in the King's City." Nan Xiaonan blinked and said subconsciously, "Mr. Luo means, you want to use this to lure out the murderer who once killed Max?" Boss Luo nodded. Nan Xiaonan rubbed the short bangs on her forehead and said, "It's not impossible. But, Mr. Luo, you will be by my side to protect me, right?" Boss Luo expressed generously. Since this was his proposal, he naturally would not put her in danger as the executor. "Then there's no problem." Nan Xiaonan accepted the task without hesitation. She wouldn't ask if this method could really lead to the murderer. Regardless of whether the murderer knew that this was a fishing operation targeting him or not, when Max, who had already been killed, appeared on the streets of the capital city, it would always bring a bit of shock to this highly suspicious murder case. Even if the murderer knew that this was a fishing operation, it would probably be very curious about who was targeting it behind the scenes, right? "Don't worry, I won't let you work for free," Boss Luo added. As for the reward, let's talk about it after we catch the murderer." Nan Xiaonan chuckled. "I believe Mr. Luo won't treat me badly. Besides, I'm quite interested in who killed Max. I feel like a lot of things have happened in the capital these past few days, and all of them were caused by Max's death. We've actually been sucked into this whirlpool long ago." "Then I'll leave it to you." Boss Luo smiled faintly, then turned invisible and disappeared. Nan Xiaonan played with the phantom crystal in her hand. She wasn't curious about the origin of the phantom crystal, but about another thing. How many invisibility scrolls did Mr. Luo have in his hands? After Tang Tianlin successfully left the palace, he walked alone on the streets of the capital city for quite a long time. There was someone behind him. From the moment he left the palace, someone had been quietly following him. If it was yesterday with the ability of the Death Walker, he might not be able to detect it, but it was different now. He didn't even need to deliberately activate the skill, let alone look back. He could roughly lock the position of the stalker just by feeling. This person should be sent by Princess Carol, but he didn't know whether it was Princess Carol's idea or the idea of the head maid, Laura. But no matter who ordered it, Tang Tianlin wouldn't let the stalker follow him all the way. He was planning to get rid of the stalker, which he could easily do at this time. However, right at this moment, the aura of the stalker suddenly disappeared. Tang Tianlin frowned slightly as he felt an extremely evil aura approaching him. This evil breath. It's Varley. In an instant, his brain made two reactions. Attack Varley, who was secretly approaching him, or stay still. He chose the latter. At this time, Varley should not know that his professional ability had made a major breakthrough. Someone is following you. At this moment, the voice of the young Varley sounded beside Tang Tianlin. I got rid of it. I know. Tang Tianlin said indifferently. I was going to see how long this guy was going to follow me. You disrupted my plan. The young Varley shrugged at this time. Then I'm sorry. But you were missing for a day and a night. Where did you go? Why did someone follow you? Tang Tianlin said with a blank expression. I went to the arena and became the new chief. Then I was sent to the palace. You planned to contact Princess Carol directly? The young Varley instantly saw through Tang Tianlin's idea and said calmly, So, you stayed in the palace last night? Tang Tianlin nodded and said, But I didn't see Princess Carol. I was arranged to stay in a room last night. There were guards outside, so it was difficult for me to bypass them. Also, a lot of things happened in the palace last night, so it was even more difficult for me to move. In the end, I didn't get anything. The young Varley looked at Tang Tianlin casually. He didn't express his belief or disbelief. He just nodded and said, I'm very familiar with the palace here. If you want to know anything, just ask me. There's no need to act on your own. Old Tang sneered and said, Speaking of acting on my own? The young Varley said indifferently, The people who followed you should be on Princess Carol's side. They wouldn't send people to follow you for no reason. You should have encountered something else in the palace, otherwise, they wouldn't have let you leave so easily. Tang Tianlin shrugged and said, Nothing, they just suggested that I participate in the national competition starting tomorrow and directly enter the final circle as a seeded player. Is that so? The young Varley nodded thoughtfully. He immediately smiled and said, That's good. I also plan to participate in this competition. No, I originally planned to participate in this competition. Tang Tianlin curiously asked, Since you know the palace like the back of your hand, maybe you have even sneaked into the palace when you acted on your own, then what's the point of participating in this competition for you? Of course, I have my own plans. The young Varley smiled indifferently and said, This competition gathers high-grade professionals from all over the world. It's quite useful for me to hone my skills. Maybe it's a good opportunity for you to participate in this competition. Maybe you can dig deeper into your profession's abilities. Tang Tianlin disagreed. These skills can be used with just a thought. What's there to dig deeper into? Is there a hidden proficiency? It's always good to use more skills. The young Varley said with a smile. Maybe there is a hidden proficiency. Tang Tianlin couldn't help but frown. He wasn't sure if there was a hidden proficiency, but the servant could indeed break the limit of the profession defined by the world of chessboard. He had done it. Except for being cursed, it could be said that he didn't have to pay any price in the early stage. Well, that's all for now. The young Varley waved his hand at this moment. Good luck. The voice still lingered in Tang Tianlin's mind, but the young Varley had disappeared. But at this time, Tang Tianlin found that he seemed to have the ability to stop the young Varley's sudden departure. No, be more confident. Maybe I can cross out seams. Tang Tianlin frowned at this time. He found that he had not adapted to this kind of sudden power. It seems that whether there is a possibility of digging deeper or not, I should really practice my current ability first. There was a well-equipped commercial martial arts field in the King's City that could be used as long as one paid for it. Tang Tianlin found what he needed to do today. It was just that the entire King's City was covered by the Dragon Emperor enchantment at this time, so it was unknown whether the shops were open or not. Boss Luo did not tell Nan Xiaonan the route after transforming into Max's appearance. She had to make her own decision. Perhaps this was Mr. Luo's test of her ability? After Nan Xiaonan made some calculations in her heart, she resolutely and quietly came to the location of the Royal City Guards Division. She hid here for a while, and then took advantage of the time when no one was paying attention to her. She quickly lowered her head and rushed to the entrance of the Guards Division. Then, she pretended that she had just walked out of the Guards Division. With the guards as a starting point, Nan Xiaonan hired a car on the way, and then visited some important government facilities in the King's City one by one. Finally, she visited the headquarters of the major guilds in the King's City. Of course, she did not know the people in the government institutions and the headquarters of the guilds. She could simply blend in with them. But until 10 o'clock in the evening, she still did not find anything. In the end, Nan Xiaonan could only return. Because she was now in Max's appearance, there was only one place left on her itinerary: Locke's weapon shop. It was already late at night. In front of Locke's weapon shop, Nan Xiaonan subconsciously looked around and whispered, "It seems that there is nothing today. Do I need to continue?" She did not get a response. Nan Xiaonan was not even sure if Mr. Luo was still around. Wait, what if this plan was actually just a move by Mr. Luo to get rid of her? I was careless. Nan Xiaonan gritted her teeth at this time. I shouldn't be so easily deceived by his kind appearance. In a state of anger, the academic which violently pushed open the door of the weapon shop and walked in, but at this moment, a low voice sounded in the weapon shop. "Who are you?" Nan Xiaonan paused at this time, and her eyes instantly became sharp. "Who are you?" It seemed that the people who came to this weapon shop always didn't like to light up and always liked to stay here and wait for people. Nan Xiaonan gently closed the door of the weapon shop. It was not Zayart, but she was not sure whether it was him or not. Nan Xiaonan could feel the strong soul power of the other party, and instantly determined that she had encountered this kind of soul power fluctuation before. Even soon, she had already identified who the other party was. The oil lamp in the hall suddenly lit up. What appeared in front of Nan Xiaonan was a middle-aged man with a calm expression and a simple and unpretentious temperament. The middle-aged man had some gray hair on his temples. "You are not Max." The middle-aged man shook his head at this time. "Why do you pretend to be him and show off in the King's City? Do you have any purpose? Why do you say that I am not Max?" Nan Xiaonan walked to the counter in the lobby and said indifferently, "Customer, it doesn't seem very good to break into the shop without permission, right? But since you are already here, tell me what you want, and I will give you a reasonable price." "Mr. Sword Saint." That's right, the stranger who appeared in the weapon shop was the kingdom's sword saint, Li Yuluo. The reason why I recognized him was because the burning serpent that Nan Xiaonan summoned had recorded Sword Saint Li Yuluo's aura and transmitted it back to me. Of course, the burning snake had died a long time ago, and could not be retrieved. At this time, Sword Saint Li Yuluo was standing with his hands behind his back. Hearing this, he raised his sword eyebrows, and his eyes were like sword lights, shooting straight at Nan Xiaonan. How could professionals fight against the holy domain of the chessboard world? At this time, Nan Xiaonan cursed in her heart. Without thinking, she summoned a high-level demon beast to block in front of her. This high-level demon beast shape was rather strange. It was actually in the shape of a bone shield. But on the big shield, there were 3 different colored eyes, and it seemed to contain other abilities. The appearance of the big shield attracted the Sword Saint's sharp gaze. Nan Xiaonan still had some confidence in her heart, so she said casually, "Sir Sword Saint, this shop is a small business. You are a dignified Sword Saint, and you are not planning to rob here, right?" Three-eyed demon shield caboose. Sword Saint Li Yuluo frowned at this time. This is one of the 72 high-level king-level monsters sealed in the demonic diagram. You have the demonic diagram in your hand. Nan Xiaonan couldn't help but have a slight expression on her face, but she said calmly, Sir Sword Saint, did you forget where I am? As a weapon shop, I occasionally buy treasures from adventurers who don't know the value of the goods. Isn't this a very normal thing? Of course it's normal. Sword Saintly Yuluo snorted and said, It's just that the demonic diagram was destroyed by me, so it's not normal for it to appear again. What did you say? Nan Xiaonan opened her mouth. Sword Saintly Yuluo said indifferently, Didn't anyone tell you that the commander of the Elnis army that destroyed the Akkadia's kingdom 20 years ago was me? Last night, the one who summoned monsters to cause trouble in the palace was also you. Why did he mention the Akkadia's kingdom again? Zayart was like this, and this sword saint was also like this. Why don't you go and argue with each other? Nan Xiaonan shrugged at this time, but she suddenly charged towards the door. If I can destroy the demonic diagram once, I can naturally destroy it a second time. Sword Saintly Yuluo waved his hand. Just based on the crime of disturbing the palace yesterday, you can't be forgiven. A sword light shot towards Nan Xiaonan's back. When she heard the sound of something breaking through the air behind her, she hurriedly activated the demonic diagram to block it. But at this moment, a flash of light suddenly shot in from outside the street and directly collided with the sword light that the sword saint had casually waved. At the moment when the two forces collided, the hall of the weapon shop instantly exploded. After everything calmed down, Sword Saintly Yuluo slowly walked out. His sharp eyes looked at the night sky outside the street. That direction blocked his sword light attack. Who did it? Sword Saintly Yuluo couldn't help but lower his head and muttered, and who killed Max? But the person who pretended to be Max had already disappeared. Nan Xiaonan rode on a huge wolf-shaped monster, taking advantage of the night to quickly shuttle through the roofs of the streets of the king's city. After a while, she stopped. This place was the roof of a rich family. The reason she stopped here was that the person who helped her launch the attack from this place. He was several streets away, but was able to accurately rescue her from Sword Saintly Yuluo's sword light. Thank you for your help, sir. At this time, Nan Xiaonan stood beside the monster, looking at the guy in front of her with his back to her. He was wearing a dark cloak. In addition, his breath was faintly discernible, and even the fluctuation of his soul was faintly discernible. Max is already dead, and the dead shouldn't appear again, the black-robed man said indifferently. Nan Xiaonan instantly tensed up, her hand clenching the demonic diagram. Is it you who killed Max? No. The black-robed man suddenly turned around, but the one who will kill you will be me. The moment he turned around, the black-robed man's hand suddenly pulled a huge longbow. On the bowstring there were 3 light arrows condensed by power. At this moment, Nan Xiaonan even felt that someone pointed a knife at her heart. She knew that she couldn't retreat at this time, because the other party had completely locked on to her. If it weren't for the restriction of the servant profession, if she could get back 1/10 of her body, no, even if it was only 1/100th of her ability, she would smash this broken chessboard world in minutes, okay? Mr. Luo, if you don't help me this time, where will you find a cute pendant like me? Whoosh! 3 light arrows were shot out at this moment. Nan Xiaonan's complexion instantly changed. She felt 3 streams of air brushing past her face. Her cheeks were even scratched by the streams of air, leaving a cut. But the target was not her. Nan Xiaonan was shocked, subconsciously turned back, only to see that the 3 light arrows shot by the black-robed man had been broken at this time, falling to the ground, instantly turning into a stream of airflow and dissipating. Boss Luo was holding his sword at this time. He looked at Nan Xiaonan, smiling slightly. I think I didn't let you down, Lady Nan. I'm so King moved, okay? The witch of the subworld's academic school rolled her eyes, but she hurriedly ran behind Boss Luo. Let's have a good time first. Aurora's asked her. The black-robed man at this time put away the bow and stood still. The king is right, one of the 3 artifacts has fallen into the hands of you outsiders. It seems that you value this sword very much. Boss Luo thought for a while. I will return it to this world. When I leave, I will return it to this world. At present, I should still need it. Don't wait until then. The black-robed man at this time said indifferently, Let's do it now. As he said, he once again drew the bow at lightning speed, and even put a real arrow on the bowstring. My swordsmanship should be very good now. Boss Luo shook his head. Stepping on air, shuttling through space, Aurora's Aster was already on top of the black-robed man's total annihilation, directly suppressing it. The tip of the sword lifted the black-robed man's hand that was pulling the bow, only to hear the sound of the bowstring. The long arrow had been directly shot under the roof of the big house. The black-robed man was shocked, but the tip of the sword went straight to his throat like lightning. The black-robed man instinctively stepped back a few steps, just retreating to a safe distance, but at this time, he felt that his hands were empty. His longbow, total annihilation, had fallen into the hands of Boss Luo at this time. I said I will return it, Boss Luo said indifferently, together with this total annihilation. Change of owner. Chapter 1857. Total annihilation was taken away. After being shocked, the black-robed man instinctively wanted to take it back again. However, a few sword lights came at him and easily forced him back. This was probably something he didn't consider at all before he appeared here. You can go. Boss Luo put away the sword at this time. Go back and tell your king that I said I will return these two weapons, and I won't break this promise. The black-robed man didn't speak, but his eyes hidden in the robe emitted a faint green light. Boss Luo said indifferently, I think in the power system of this world, you should be at the top level. Although you took away this bow, if you really want to make a move, you can't avoid making some noise. The black-robed man still didn't speak. Boss Luo said, I don't mind if you are willing to let the sensitive dragon queen in the palace discover your existence. The black-robed man's strange eyes gradually calmed down, but he didn't have the intention to leave. My identity here is just like the outsider you know, Boss Luo said indifferently. In other words, even if you want to kill, it's not impossible. Maybe it's a bit tough, but I'm willing to move around here with this identity. As he said, Boss Luo casually waved the sword in his hand. Speaking of which, I really haven't tried to use force to directly erase a real life. Are you willing to be my first experience? Of course, this won't be a death in vain. You will get something, maybe something you have always wanted. When people die, it's meaningless to get more. The black-robed man said calmly, You said so much just to let me leave and not to kill me. Maybe you don't have the confidence to kill me or keep me here. Boss Luo slowly sighed at this time, and said softly with a voice that only Nan Xiaonan could barely hear clearly, Since it's only a world in the chessboard, it's not impossible to indulge a little here. Mr. Luo? Nan Xiaonan raised her head subconsciously. At this moment she saw a flash of light. She couldn't even see Boss Luo's figure clearly, but when she regained her senses, Luochio had already appeared behind the black-robed man. Aurora's Aster was slowly returning to its scabbard. Finally, it let out a ding sound. At the same time, the black-robed man's black robe was torn open from the middle. What appeared in front of Nan Xiaonan was a very special human face. It had no hair, and its ears were slightly long and pointy, but it was obvious that it wasn't an elf from the elven homeland. Its abnormally pale skin and sharp teeth made it seem like a beast. On the black-robed man's forehead, there was a thin sword mark. His pupils were already extremely wide open. Poof! In the next second, the black-robed man directly fell down. He fell to the ground, and his body had already lost all signs of life. After a while, when the cold wind blew, Nan Xiaonan bypassed the black-robed man's corpse and walked to Boss Luo, asking in disbelief, Mr. Luo, you really killed someone for the first time? Maybe. Boss Luo said indifferently, I've destroyed many souls, but none of them were as real as this one. I'm just saying casually. Was this a joke? This Almighty who could easily control the will of a subworld had actually never killed anyone until now? If it was true, then compared to this Mr. Luo, Nan Xiaonan really felt that she was as unclean as a prostitute who had been ravaged by life thousands of times. I want to cherish these souls hidden in the skin as much as possible. Luoqiu glanced at Nan Xiaonan. So many times, I'm reluctant to peel them off myself. Nan Xiaonan only felt extremely terrified. She saw that Mr. Luo's eyes were chaotic at this moment. It was more chaotic than any void scenery in any dimensional crevice she had ever seen. The fear from the depths of her soul made her unconsciously take a step back. Her soul was afraid, an unprecedented fear. She felt that she had underestimated this Mr. Luo. Maybe he was not just a powerful figure in the void, but an ancient giant who had existed in the dimensional void for a long time. You're afraid of me, Luoqiu said indifferently. Lady Nan has always wanted to follow me. If you're afraid, will you still think so? I'm just. Nan Xiaonan's brain was spinning crazily at this moment. But whether it was this body or the broken soul, both showed that she was at the lowest point of her life. She couldn't think, she opened her mouth to speak, but she couldn't say it. Just what? He obviously wanted to know the answer from her mouth, or from her voice. Nan Xiaonan gritted her teeth. She felt that she was going through the most important gamble in her life. I yearn for freedom. Nan Xiaonan took a deep breath and said, I like to be free and unrestrained, exploring the void without any restraints. But I found that I can't do it by myself. I tried not to let myself be contaminated by all the causes and effects in the dimensional crevice. I never fight with others. Even if I want to do something, I'll do it under the condition that there won't be any repercussions, and I'll leave immediately. I've tried so hard, but I still can't achieve the freedom in my heart. I lack enough power. So, to be honest, of course, I hope to get the power of freedom from Mr. Luo. You need to pay a price, Boss Luo said simply. Freedom is priceless, Nan Xiaonan said seriously. Because it's priceless, if you want to get it, you naturally need to pay a huge price. Whether it's the living beings or the strong in the dimensional void, there are things in our hearts that we want to get. She began to be honest, at least for now. Boss Luo's face suddenly showed a trace of a smile. The chaos in his eyes also unknowingly became clear. Tell me. Nan Xiaonan took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, What do I need to do to be qualified to be your companion, to get the power I yearn for from you? I think the reason why Mr. Luo killed people, maybe it's not as simple as just to experience the so-called feeling of killing, but also to convey something to me. You're temperamental, or you do whatever you want. I can't be temperamental. Boss Luo shook his head. Do whatever you want, I'm not ready yet. But this is not the answer I want to hear. Tell me, what should I do? Nan Xiaonan said with a serious face. Become your loyal servant, I can also do it. Becoming my servant is equivalent to losing your freedom. Boss Luo shook his head. Nan Xiaonan said, I'm now trapped in the outside subworld, and this chessboard world. I've already lost greater freedom. Boss Luo smiled and said, In fact, I quite enjoy the time with Lady Nan, because for you, I'm just a very powerful person in your imagination. It has nothing to do with my original identity. Nan Xiaonan subconsciously said, Mr. Luo, what other identity does he have? She really wanted to know. If he was really a powerful being in the dimensional void, he definitely wouldn't be unknown. No matter what, she would always be able to deduce from some clues. If you know, Lady Nan, maybe you won't treat me like you do now. Boss Luo shook his head. So this point may be unfair to you, but if you really want to know, you can only rely on yourself to find the answer. You won't get the answer from me or the people around me. Nan Xiaonan was startled, then her heart moved and she blinked. This is what I need to do? It's late. Boss Luo smiled and said, Lady Nan, you've been tired today. Let's go back to the weapon shop to rest. Tomorrow we still have to participate in the kingdom tournament. With that, Boss Luo gently jumped down from the roof of this big house. Nan Xiaonan looked back at the black-robed man's corpse behind her, then she hurriedly chased up and asked, This is a test, right? The academic witch in her subworld immediately started to chatter and ask questions. The corpse laid on the ground and gradually became cold. The foraging reptile began to approach the corpse. It had already climbed onto the corpse, but at this moment, the cold corpse instantly regained its original temperature. Feeling the terrifying aura released by the corpse that came back to life, the foraging reptile immediately fled in horror. It had only crawled out a little before it died and shattered into ashes. I've already died once, the black-robed man sat on the ground in a daze, subconsciously reaching out to touch the wound on his forehead. Except for a shallow scar, he couldn't even feel a drop of blood. So, this is the world after death. He was silent, and silent. The experience of life and death was so strange. The black-robed man was silent at this moment. He silently stood up and quickly fled towards the direction of the palace. Not long after, he bypassed all the palace guards and even the senses of the Dragon Queen, who was staying in the palace at this moment, quietly appeared in King Amos's study room. You're late. King Amos, who was reading in the study room at night, didn't raise his head, but the black-robed man who came here didn't respond either. The king couldn't help but frown and looked up. What happened? Total annihilation was taken away by the holder of the holy sword. The black-robed man, Gu said expressionlessly. His Majesty subconsciously flicked his finger slightly, and the page of the book was broken. He didn't say anything, just closed the book, and pressed his palm on the cover of the book. After a while, King Amos asked in a deep voice, What did he say? He said, Together with the holy sword, when it's time to return it, he will return it. Return. He really said that he will return it? King Amos opened his mouth. His expression was rich. Gu was curious. You believe him? There's nothing to not believe. King Amos shook his head. I just saw with my own eyes that he took off the sacred armor and gave it to Hilda. But, to be able to take away total annihilation from your hands, it seems that our world has really welcomed a terrifying outsider this time. Total annihilation has been taken away. You can kill me now. Gu suddenly said. Why would I kill you? King Amos asked curiously. If I kill you when I'm about to die, who will block the sword for me? Me next. Gu said indifferently. I don't have time to wait for the next you to appear. King Amos waved his hand. It's just one of the 3 divine weapons. It was made by a craftsman at least 1,000 years ago, and it still has great power even now. However, the descendants... Can't the descendants surpass their predecessors? Make it simple. Gu shook his head. King Amos said, What's really powerful is a person, not a cold weapon. Besides, didn't he say that he will return it? What's there to worry about? Speaking of tonight's incident, have you found out the identity of the person who appeared as Max? Gu thought for a while and said, It should be the companion of that holy sword wielder in disguise. I think his purpose should be to lure out the culprit. Also, Liolo appeared in the weapon shop tonight. He should be here for this matter as well. King Amos said indifferently, Liolo personally ended the Kadia's kingdom, killed their king, and destroyed the most precious treasure of the Kadia's royal family, the demonic diagram. Now that the demonic diagram has reappeared, he naturally wouldn't be indifferent. But in fact, he personally went to Locke's weapon shop, because of the demonic diagram. He shouldn't have known beforehand. Then why did he go there? It should be because of his student. King Amos said slowly, Peace between man and nature. Peace between man and nature is a descendant of the Kadia's royal family, and so is the child adopted by Max. Liolo wants to find out the truth about the child's background. Gu frowned. Logically speaking, he should be the biggest enemy of the Kadia's royal family. King Amos shook his head. He's not. I am. Destroying Kadias was my order, and Liolo was just an executor. Gu shook his head and said, You shouldn't have allowed peace between man and nature to remain in the capital. Liolo shouldn't have hidden the identity of peace between man and nature. I don't understand why you did this. If I say. King Amos suddenly looked at Gu, who was like a shadow, and said slowly, Liolo didn't really kill the king of Kadias. He's still alive. What do you think? Zayart? Gu couldn't help but blurt out. I didn't say anything. King Amos chuckled, then waved his hand and said, You've been here for a long time. Even if you're the last member of the Dark Shadow clan on the continent, with Hilda's strength, she'll find out sooner or later. In the next few days, help me keep an eye on someone. Who? Laura. Okay. Gu didn't ask why. After a simple nod, his figure gradually melted into the darkness. But he didn't completely disappear. King Amos didn't even raise his eyes and said, Is there anything else? Gu was silent for a moment, then said, Tonight I died once and then came back to life. He has the holy sword in his hand, and can even take Apocalypse from you. He can also face Hilda without batting an eyelid. Indeed, it's very dangerous even for you to face such a powerful outsider. King Amos nodded. I know. If I meet him again, I'll be careful. I said I really did die once, Gu said in a deep voice. He killed me, then brought me back to life again. He can control life and death with just a thought. King Amos suddenly raised his head. Chapter 1858. Pink smoke bombs exploded in the sky above the king's city. Ji Lian could vaguely hear some noises coming from outside. Counting the days, today should be the first day of the national competition in Cairo. It was just that living in the most luxurious house in the guards division was like living in a palace. Except for the servants who brought food, the only person Ji Lian could contact was the peace between man and nature. However, the peace between man and nature had not appeared since the last time he came. It looks so lively. I also want to join in the fun. After all, he was still a teenager, and the time he had to really be quiet was quite little. The prosperity of the human world was actually reaching out to this teenager, who was actually under house arrest. You are Ji Lian? But at this moment, a man with a cold face appeared in front of the door. This was not the servant in charge of delivering food. Ji Lian could not help but frown when he saw this person for the first time. Who are you? The man with a cold face said indifferently, Come with me, someone wants to see you. Who? You will know when you get there. The man with a cold face stretched out his hand. Please. Inside the guards division, Ji Lian knew he had no ability to resist at all. At this moment, he could only let it be. But if it was the peace between man and nature who came to see him, he should not have done this. I don't know what the peace between man and nature is doing, Ji Lian said intentionally or unintentionally. Yesterday he said he would come to chat with me. The man with a cold face said indifferently, I don't know if he promised you or not, but he will not come back to see you today. Cut the crap. With that, the man with a cold face directly pushed Ji Lian's back, as if he was escorting a prisoner. Damn, he said he had a high status in the guards division. Look, this iceberg did not give him any face at all. A moment later, Ji Lian followed the cold-faced man to a pavilion. What he didn't expect was that the guards division actually occupied a much larger area than he had imagined. He actually saw a small lake here. The pavilion was in the center of the lake, and there was only a stone bridge that led to it. The cold-faced man stood at the edge of the lake and signaled Ji Lian to walk towards the pavilion in the center of the lake alone. Ji Lian hesitated for a moment, but seeing that there seemed to be a person waiting at the pavilion in the center of the lake, she could only carefully walk over. When he arrived at the pavilion, he saw a man with white hair on his temples but a rosy complexion. He was wiping his sword with the lake water. The man wiping the sword did not speak, nor did he look up at him. Ji Lian saw the cold light of the long sword in the man's hand and couldn't help but praise, This is a good sword. The man stopped. You know swords? Jillian shook his head. I don't know much about swords, but I have seen a lot of weapons, so I can still distinguish between good and bad ones. Although this sword is hidden, it vaguely reveals a trace of cold light, like the cold moon. Under the sunlight, there is a trace of red light. It must be a real weapon that once drank blood. It hasn't been stained with blood for almost 10 years. The man smiled and put the sword down. All these years, I insisted on using the water in this lake to wash away the murderous aura on it, but it hasn't been completely washed away. How many people has it killed? Jillian could not help but be secretly shocked. Although he did not like being a craftsman, and his father's attitude towards him was almost free-spirited, never forcing him to learn any weapon forging techniques, he had grown up in a weapons shop since he was young. He was influenced by what he saw and heard, so he could be considered an insider. Sir, why did you invite me here? Jillian could only ask tentatively. I just want to see you. The man smiled. Don't be nervous. We won't be chatting for long. Quark will send you back later. Quark. Jillian subconsciously turned around to take a look. The cold-faced man by the lake was holding his sword, standing motionlessly with his eyes closed. Quark is half a student of mine, the man said casually. He has been with me for a long time, even before peace between man and nature. However, his talent is not as high as peace between man and nature, but he wins in hard work. Among the younger generation, there are few who can match him. Lord Peace between man and nature. Your student? Jillian seemed to have realized something and blurted out, Could it be that you are? My name is Li Yulo, the man, the kingdom's sword saint, said with a smile. Lord Sword Saint. Jillian could not remain calm. In his more than 10 years of life, this was the person with the highest status he had ever seen. Moreover, he was the kingdom's sword saint that was praised throughout the continent. The people said that this Lord Sword Saint was the kingdom's pillar of protection. In the early years, he had followed King Amos to war all over the world. Many saints from other countries had died in the hands of this kingdom's sword saint. You and peace between man and nature are of the same race. Sword Saint Li Yulo said coldly, No need to be so polite. You can call me teacher like him. Jillian was startled at first, thinking that this kind of relationship was not enough to call him teacher. But he suddenly realized that this Lord Sword Saint already knew that he was from the Highlands. You look a bit like an old friend of mine. Sword Saint Li Yulo said slowly. I once promised him that I would take good care of his descendants. I heard that your adoptive father, Max, is already dead. In the coming days, you can stay in the guards division. You will be very safe here with me. Jillian opened his mouth and was about to say something. Sword Saint Li Yulo suddenly threw the sword that he had just finished wiping to Jillian. Jillian could only grab the sword in a panic. You have never practiced swordsmanship before? Li Yulo asked curiously. Jillian subconsciously shook his head. Dad has always been against me going to the swordsmanship club to learn. He always said that learning was useless. Sword Saint Li Yulo chuckled. From today onwards, I will teach you swordsmanship. Jillian said, Isn't it too late to learn now? The instructor of the swordsmanship club said that the best age to learn swordsmanship is from the age of 10, it's not too late. Sword Saint Li Yulo said indifferently, As long as you have the heart, it won't be too late even if you are 30 or 40 years old. Moreover, you are from the Highlands. As long as you are from the Highlands, it won't be too late. With that, Sword Saint Li Yulo suddenly reached out and grabbed Jillian before he could react. Then, he pulled Jillian directly into the lake. Jillian was shocked. He thought that he would be swallowed by the lake water, but he found that after falling into the water, the lake water could not get close to him at all. He saw that there was a layer of strange light protecting him and Sword Saint. They sank all the way until they landed at the bottom of the lake. Ji Lian actually saw a dense array of swords at the bottom of the lake. These swords were of different styles. Some were mottled, some were broken, and some were still glowing. The bottom of the lake was like a tomb for swords. Here? I call it the sword tomb at the bottom of the lake. Sword Saintly Yulo said slowly. The masters of the swords buried here were all defeated by me. Every time I kill a swordsman, I will throw his sword into the lake. To commemorate those people? On one hand, Li Yulo said casually, on the other hand, it is to feed something. With that, Sword Saintly Yulo waved his hand instantly and a sword light slashed out. The sword tomb at the bottom of the lake directly split open at this moment. A dark red blood light shot out from the crack, and in this blood light, a green longsword could be vaguely seen. The moment Ji Lian noticed the cyan sword, he saw that the place where the blade and hilt of the cyan sword met had actually split open. At the place where the sword had split open, a dark red eye had shockingly appeared. What is this? Ji Lian was shocked. Sword Soul Beast. Sword Saintly Yulo said slowly, under the heaven and earth, there are many strange beasts. Some will take the appearance of the familiar devil beasts, but some will take the form of a devil beast, a beast or a weapon. A few years ago, I obtained a dying sword soul beast and placed it here. I kept feeding it all kinds of broken swords containing the will of the swordsman. Finally, it gave birth to 2 cubs, and they have already matured for a long time. With that, without waiting for Ji Lian's reaction, Sword Saintly Yulo stretched out his hand and grabbed the green sword soul beast in the crack. At the same time, he used his finger to cut open the sleeve on Ji Lian's arm. You are a Highlander, you have the purest Highland bloodline in your body. You can control all the beasts in the world. Sword Saintly Yulo said solemnly. This sword soul beast will fuse into your body and become the foundation of your sword Dao. You will have unparalleled sword Dao knowledge. Wait. At this moment, Sword Saintly Yulo had already stabbed the sword soul beast into Ji Lian's arm. A blood mark instantly appeared on his arm. Rather than saying that the sword soul beast had stabbed into his arm, it would be more accurate to say that the sword soul beast was being devoured by the blood mark. A huge impact was surging in his mind. His consciousness was instantly drowned by this huge impact. At the bottom of the lake, Ji Lian had already escaped from the protective shield released by the Sword Saint, but his body continued to release waves of sword light, completely isolating the lake water. Looking at Ji Lian, Sword Saintly Yulo muttered, "This progress is even faster than the peace between man and nature." Apart from the Imperial Guards, all the guards were mobilized to maintain order at the opening of the tournament. But even so, there were still endless fights and trampling happening in the boiling scene. This was simply a hellish challenge for the entire defense system of the royal capital. "Sir, so you were here. I've been looking for you for a long time." On a tall building next to the National Square, the subordinates of the guards finally found the second seat, sitting on the roof of someone's house, enjoying the scenery and eating buns. "What's the matter?" The head of the peace between man and nature seemed to have emptied his mind. "We're too busy," the subordinate anxiously said. "The tournament hasn't officially started yet. His Majesty's troops are about to enter, but the chaos still hasn't calmed down. Those Imperial Guards are now arresting anyone they see. Many innocent civilians have been implicated." The head of the peace between man and nature yawned and said, "This is a free country. What good method do we have to drive them away? Depriving the people of their freedom will only bring trouble to ourselves. If you don't let the people participate in the tournament, they will go crazy. At that time, I'm afraid even the garrison troops will have to enter. Of course, the premise is that they can cross the Dragon Emperor barrier. Haha, when enough people are injured or killed, they will be obedient." "Sir, now is not the time for jokes." The head of the peace between man and nature brushed his ears and stood up. "Now is not the time for jokes. I should enter the tournament." "Enter, what do you mean?" the subordinate subconsciously asked. Enter the tournament, of course. The head of the piece between man and nature said matter-of-factly. This is a tournament that gathers young masters from all over the country. Without me, what's there to see? Sir? Sir? The head of the piece between man and nature had already leaped into the air and landed in the center of the venue like an eagle spreading its wings. Soon, King Amos was escorted to the venue of the tournament. However, the king just said a few words and left directly. He didn't intend to watch the rest of the tournament. This was only the first day of the elimination tournament. For many people who were looking for talents at this time, it was not a good time. At the very least, the competition for the top 100 was something that the nobles began to look forward to. But for the general public, even if it was just an elimination tournament, it was still a grand event worth watching, because this tournament did not forbid killing. You could defeat your opponent and make him surrender. At the same time, you could not accept the surrender and directly kill your opponent on the field. Got it, the number certificate for the tournament. This is your Mr. Luo. Nan Xiaonan squeezed through the crowd at this time. If we keep winning, it will take at least a dozen rounds to enter the elimination tournament tomorrow. After all, there are so many participants. Boss Luo didn't care. He just smiled and put away the certificate. Nan Xiaonan shrugged and had to look indifferent. But at this time, the crowd began to stir. Go away. Go away. I am a seated player recommended by the general. I don't need to participate in the elimination tournament. Go away. I want to observe the qualifications of this year's contestants. What kind of contestants are these? They are as thin as monkeys. Can they even hold weapons? Go away. At this time, a muscular swordsman with a big sword on his back was rudely pushing people away from the crowd. Pushing and shoving. Seeing that the crowd was about to reach where she was standing, Nan Xiaonan rolled her eyes and shouted loudly to the contestants beside her to not push and shove her way towards Boss Luo. Ayaya, it's so crowded. Mr. Luo, it's so crowded. Let's go over there first. It's so crowded. Squeeze. Nan Xiaonan suddenly blinked her eyes. She did squeeze, but she was squeezed out by the crowd. What a waste of such a good opportunity! Nan Xiaonan shook her head. At this time, Boss Luo was also pushed out by the crowd. Nan Xiaonan quickly walked up to Boss Luo. But at this time, Boss Luo bent down and picked up something from the ground. What is this? The tall swordsman dropped something on the ground. Boss Luo picked up the thing and found that it was a token. Hey, this is the certificate of a seated player. A warrior in the crowd exclaimed. In an instant, the crowd suddenly quieted down. Everyone squeezed harder, squeezing until there was an empty space. He is a seated player. As soon as he said this, the surroundings became much quieter. The surrounding contestants all looked at the item in Boss Luo's hand. Their gazes became a lot richer. At the same time, there was less respect in their eyes, but more greed. That's right, I did leave this proof behind by accident. A fierce-looking professionist with a scar on his face and a huge axe in his hand pushed his way out of the crowd. I was worried about what to do, but I didn't expect you to pick it up. Give it back to me. This bag of money is your reward. The big guy with the axe threw out the bag of money, and then without saying anything, he tried to grab the verification in Boss Luo's hand. However, before this large man with the axe could do anything, he was already grabbed by another hand. The person who came was expressionless, but he did not seem to be a person to be trifled with. The murderous aura around his body was thick. Wait a moment, I also accidentally dropped my proof just now. I'm afraid that proof is mine. Your piece may still be on the ground, so you should pick it up yourself. Obviously, the two of them didn't really have the verification. They all knew that, therefore, the surrounding contestants all rushed forward at this time. Because there were so many of them, they even started to fight. How dare you! Suddenly, a loud shout was heard. At the same time, a huge figure descended from the sky, and then a huge sword struck the floor. Rumble! Not only did the floor shatter, but the shockwave even pushed away the surrounding crowd. Everyone was shocked. At this time, Mose, who was holding the huge sword, slowly stood up, put the sword on his shoulder, and shouted, "Go away! This piece of verification belongs to me. I'm Mose, the first right-hand man of the general's family." Many of them didn't know who the general was. In the early years of the Kingdom of Elnis, many people in the military department in the King's City were given the title of general because of their military achievements. Although there were many generals, and some of them weren't very famous, but any general with the word general must be very powerful. Thus, under everyone's fearful gaze, Mose slowly walked to Boss Luo with the huge sword. He looked down and said in a low voice, "You're the skinny monkey who picked up my verification? Here you are." Boss Luo smiled and threw the verification to Mose. Mose was about to say something, but when he saw the lost proof being tossed back to him, he subconsciously caught it. Mose frowned but said with some surprise, "Are you really returning it to me like this? This is indeed what you threw down." Boss Luo's voice was not loud. "I saw it fall from your body when you pushed away the crowd. Be careful next time. It's easy to hurt others when there are too many people pushing and shoving." "Are you teaching me a lesson?" Mose opened his eyes wide like a bull's eyes. "Not really." Boss Luo shook his head. "It's just a suggestion, you can totally ignore it. After all, we don't know each other." "Kid." Mose snorted and walked forward. He was 2 heads taller than Boss Luo, so he looked down at him. "Do you know that even my mother doesn't dare to talk to me like this?" This was probably the type of person who had always been rude. Nan Xiaonan couldn't stand it anymore. Her eyes narrowed slightly. She kept saying that she wanted to follow Mr. Luo, so there was no reason for Mr. Luo to solve such a small matter. Boss Luo frowned slightly. Nan Xiaonan saw this signal and copied the demonic diagram without hesitation. She had already chosen which monster to summon. Unexpectedly, Mose said in a deep voice, "My mother said that if I meet someone who dares to scold me in front of me, he must be a good person. My mother also said that if I meet a good person, I must treat him with respect." "Oh, you're dead. This 1,000-soul-devouring insects beast will definitely make you." Nan Xiaonan opened her mouth. "What's going on? I'm a good person?" Boss Luo said in surprise. Mose nodded heavily. While nodding, his chest muscles were actually trembling. "Proofs are anonymous. Anyone who has a proof can become a seated player. That's why these people want to steal your proof when they see it in your hand. Originally, if you admit that the verification is yours, these people might be a little scared. Because only those who have the ability will be given the verification. But in order to prevent the seated players from being arrogant because they have the verification, this anonymous rule is used to warn the seated players that whoever has the ability can replace the verification. So? Nan Xiaonan couldn't help but ask. "This little brother is really a good person." Mose patted his chest. "Not only is he not greedy for the verification, he even dared to scold me. He's a very good person. I'll make you my friend. Come follow me. I'll bring you to the arena." The seated players who had the verification could directly participate in the final round, and at the same time, the seated players could recommend up to 3 people to skip the audition. In order to repay the good person described by his mother, Mose used the verification authority in his hands to register Boss Luo and Nan Xiaonan to skip the audition. Nan Xiaonan was now following Boss Luo and Mose. She rubbed the strand of bangs on her forehead and muttered, "Although we can't directly enter the final round, it's much more convenient to skip the audition. It's not unacceptable. Mr. Luo really perfectly explained to me what it means to be a good person. Bah, this is clearly the way to play Destiny's Child. He really knows how to play." She felt that she had seen through all this. So she followed behind Mose in boredom and observed the strength of the contestants. Although the servants could quickly gain powerful professional power, the creatures in chessboard had many strong ones who had been trained for a long time. In a short period of time, Nan Xiaonan had encountered several local holy ones who could kill her, so it was necessary to observe the strength of the contestants. For example, Mose. Although he was a bit reckless, he forced so many people to retreat with his sword just now, so his strength was not bad. At this moment, a figure suddenly fell from a field to Nan Xiaonan's side. It seemed that he was directly knocked down from the field. The defeated contestant spat out a mouthful of blood at this time. He struggled but couldn't stand up, and soon fainted. Nan Xiaonan raised her head to look at the small tournament stage, and saw a pair of inconceivable eyes staring at her at this time. Nan Xiaonan quickly waved her hand and greeted. "You're here too." The contestant on the small field frowned at this time and asked directly. This contestant was Dr. Gores of the Castle Trio. To the doctor's surprise, the three of them had been queuing outside the field since midnight last night, in order to avoid the crowded opening in the morning. But there were many people who had the same idea as them. Even if it was 10 o'clock in the middle of the night, the line of people who came early was still a few streets away. They didn't even have time to eat breakfast. They were busy entering the field at the beginning of the audition. Now they had played several games, but they were far from being qualified. It seemed that they would have to fight for at least another day. "Yes, didn't Mr. Luo tell you before that he would come to participate in the competition?" Nan Xiaonan nodded. "Yes." Dr. Gores nodded and looked forward. He did vaguely see the back of Boss Luo, and secretly thought that the captain had indeed come. "Wait, isn't that the passage to the next stage of the field?" Dr. Gores couldn't help but open his mouth at this time. You finished the first stage of the audition?" Nan Xiaonan's eyes turned, and she briefly explained what happened outside with a smile. "That's it, we directly entered the next round with the identity of Moses' recommendation. I don't want to say any more, I'm going to lose you. Dr. Gores. See you inside." She showed a bright smile, waving her innocent arms, and then humming a little song like a small tale, she followed Boss Luo and Mose who had walked away in front of her. I knew it. Seeing Nan Xiaonan's back gradually disappear, Dr. Gores walked down the small field step by step as if he had lost his soul. Suddenly, the doctor directly threw the participation certificate in his hand on the ground. "Why didn't you bring me to play?" Arbitrarily destroying the participation certificate, looking down on the authority of the competition, one demerit will be recorded, and one victory will be revoked. Contestant No. 9527, please prepare for the next game. Dr. Gores. The general is not in the royal city. Yes. Mose said at this time, although King Amos has pacified the countries, there are still remnants of the old kingdom in various places. They are hiding and waiting for an opportunity to make a move. If all of them are counted, they are not a small force. Therefore, for the sake of the kingdom, the general has always been wandering around and hasn't returned to the royal city for many years. While observing the contestants, Mose chatted with Boss Luo. Boss Luo smiled slightly and said, "Mr. Mose, it seems that you have a lot of respect for the general." Mose nodded. "It was the general who discovered me. If it weren't for the general, I might still be farming in the countryside. They all said that my brain is not good, and that I only have brute force. However, the general said that this is not brute force, but natural strength, and that I am a good candidate to be a warrior." As he spoke, Mose shook the muscles on his chest again. "The general trained me, so I must get a place in the competition to repay the general's kindness to me." Boss Luo smiled and said, "The national champion of this competition seems to have a chance to become the husband of Her Royal Highness. If you can win and become the prince consort of the kingdom, you will bring glory to the general." Mose said, "I am not here to become the prince consort, I am here for the prize of this competition. I don't care about being the prince consort, I just want to get first place, get the champion's prize, and enter the kingdom's treasury to pick something." It can save the general's mother's life. Treasury? Yes, Mose said. Oh, this information is only known to the seated contestants. I will tell you, but you can't tell anyone else. I will. Boss Luo nodded. Hashtag PS1. Mose's image will be based on the image of Master Luo from Yiwen 1234. There will be special effects. PS2. This is a character for PY transactions. That's all. PS3. The chapter name is wrong, it should be a Chapter 103. Chapter 1860. Contestants were constantly knocked down from the stage and carried away. Many of them were already cold corpses. The competition didn't forbid killing during the competition. At this moment, one could feel the extreme martial atmosphere of the Kingdom of Elness. Now, most of the places in the audition were dyed red with blood. Congratulations, if you win one more match, you can enter the next stage of the competition. The little referee at the substage of the audition was giving a kind reminder to one of his contestants. This contestant had won 7 matches in a row, and he killed his opponent with 1 strike. He was quite powerful. If I win one more match, I can advance? That's right, congratulations. Then I'll forfeit this match. What did you say? I plan to fight a few more matches here, the contestant said with a laugh that made the little referee's heart tremble. If it's possible, please arrange for me to go to the Resurrection Battle Royale. I heard that it's a battle royale with at least 100 people. Truly a bloodthirsty madman. The little referee subconsciously looked at this contestant who had won 7 matches in a row. His face was very ordinary, but his whole body exuded a terrifying bloody aura. He couldn't help but look at this contestant's name, Li Hua. In the next stage of the competition, contestants who were selected from the audition kept walking in through the passage. Of course, the number of contestants had decreased a lot. However, those who could pass the audition were already quite powerful, for the professionals in the world of chessboard. From this stage, it's not a simple duel. Mose pointed at several huge buildings in the second stage and said, "From here, you need to pass the tests in these buildings one by one. Only the contestants who pass all the tests are qualified to enter the final round." Nan Xiaonan subconsciously looked. These buildings seemed to have been completed not long ago, and there were even some waste materials left in many places. What's in there? I don't know the details. Mose shook his head and said, "After all, I don't need to participate in this stage of the audition, so I'm not interested in knowing. But I heard that the dangers in each building are different, and it's not easy to pass through with force." Boss Luo saw that some contestants had already walked into these buildings. So, the audition and the second stage of the audition are held at the same time? Mose nodded and said, "Because there are too many contestants, so it's set up like this. In fact, only in the final round of the third stage will people really pay attention to it. However, to the ordinary people, the first round of the auditions is more interesting. After all, it's a place where every punch hits the flesh. You can see where the killing takes place. It's not like this place where there are only a few large buildings. No one can see what happens inside. All right, little brother, I'll send you off here. I hope to see you in the final circle." At first, she didn't expect that because of this boorish man's help, she would be able to skip the first round of the audition. At this time, Nan Xiaonan was not stingy with her thanks. "By the way, little brother, remember not to tell anyone what I told you just now." Mose mysteriously pulled Boss Luo to the side. "Even if you accidentally blurted it out in your sleep, don't tell anyone that I told you." Luoqiu said casually, "I don't have the habit of talking in my sleep." Mose nodded. Because he was a seated contestant, he could directly leave the second stage area, but he seemed to be worried and didn't leave immediately. Instead, he walked to the final round of the second stage area. Relatively speaking, the number of contestants at the final round was much smaller, in 2s and 3s. At this time, The first batch of contestants who passed the second stage of the audition had already arrived at the final round, waiting for certification, and then directly entering the final round. These contestants who passed the second stage of the audition were the ones Mose planned to observe today. It seems that the test inside the building is quite difficult. None of these guys are weak, but almost all of them have some injuries. Mose silently looked at Boss Luo and Nan Xiaonan, who were still waiting to enter the first building, and muttered, "Little brother, do your best. Mose, why are you here?" At this time, a sloppy voice sounded in Mose's ears. Mose instantly frowned. He recognized the voice. "It's you, the peace between man and nature. Why are you here? Shouldn't you be outside keeping order? There's no rule that says that guards are not allowed to participate in the competition, right?" The second guard shrugged and said, "Of course, the guards are poor. They didn't even get a seed certification, so I can only fight my way here according to the rules." Mose immediately cracked his knuckles. "I'm looking forward to it. I'll beat you until you look like a pig." The peace between man and nature suddenly turned his head and asked, "Mose, what's your relationship with the two people you just brought here?" Mose subconsciously frowned and said, "What relationship do I have with them, and what relationship do I have with you? Why, are you planning to attack my friends?" "Friends?" The peace between man and nature suspiciously looked at Mose from head to toe. "What's the problem?" The peace between man and nature shook his head. "Nothing. You stay here, I'll go to the next area first. That's all, Big Head Mose." I said, "Don't call me that." Mose was stunned at this time, and then he became angry. "I hate it when people call me a big head." Mose clenched his fists, his chest muscles trembled, and his eyes were as wide as a bull's. He pulled out his giant sword and said angrily, "No need to wait for the finals. Let's duel. The peace between man and nature. I'll definitely defeat you this time." Menacing. He was really menacing. The peace between man and nature narrowed his eyes at this time, and his body quickly retreated, and he suddenly threw a bun. The bun landed on the spot where Mose was going to step next. Then Mose's body slid, and the giant sword directly hit the ground, and a huge crack suddenly appeared at the edge of the area. Everyone was shocked. "This guy's brute force is really..." The peace between man and nature muttered at this time, and took advantage of the commotion to leave without saying anything. Mose suddenly lost the trace of the peace between man and nature, and he was so angry that he cursed. "Who cleaned this place today? This floor is slippery. It's really slippery. This Moses brute force is really a bit." The greatsword had almost split the second stage of the competition into two. This was something that couldn't be hidden. The dust that rose into the air could probably be seen even from the outside of the competition grounds, not to mention the commotion that it caused. Nan Xiaonan was a bit speechless. She could easily distinguish whether it was the power of the skill or the manifestation of pure force. "This Mr. Moses' strength is more than that," Boss Luo said casually at this time. Nan Xiaonan came forward and said, "Mr. Luo, I found a problem. It seems that the more complicated the people are, the more likely they will gather around you." Boss Luo smiled casually. In fact, this was not bad. He could now freely close the shop to the outside world, which was why he was in such a free state now. But even so, it was indeed as Nan Xiaonan said. And Nan Xiaonan suddenly changed the topic at this time. "No matter what purpose they have in mind, and what their origin is, they will naturally make things convenient for you. Lady Nan, what do you want to say?" Nan Xiaonan blinked and said, "Didn't you ask me to find out your true identity with my own ability? Then, at least you should allow me to make some guesses, right? I admit that I don't have the ability to give the answer directly." "Then what are your guesses now?" Boss Luo was quite curious. Nan Xiaonan smiled and said, "Mr. Luo, you want me to hand in the answer sheet so soon?" Boss Luo shook his head, and then said indifferently, "Making things convenient for others also makes things convenient for oneself. I think no one likes to encounter some troublesome things, such as this." Such as this? Nan Xiaonan was startled and subconsciously looked around. At this time, some players who were about to enter the first building suddenly came together. There were a total of 5 people, and the 5 of them were stained with a lot of blood, which should be from fighting in the audition field. But there were no obvious wounds on their bodies. Obviously, it was the blood of their opponents. For example, like this, "Do you want to see trouble or convenience?" Boss Luo smiled casually. Nan Xiaonan subconsciously said, "So what if it's trouble or convenience? Then feel the trouble first." Boss Luo smiled casually. Just as he finished speaking, the faces of the 5 contestants revealed a trace of arrogance. The leader of the group said loudly, "The 2 of you, it wasn't easy for you to pass the audition. The second stage of the test is full of difficulties. We should help each other. I've found a few like-minded friends, and I plan to pass the test together. I wonder if you 2 are interested?" Nan Xiaonan looked at Mr. Luo at this time, and then looked at the contestant who spoke. She thought for a while and said, "If we agree, you will use us as a shield during the test, right? You think we're weaker and easier to bully, right? If we don't agree, you don't mind using the black water here to make us unable to participate in the next test?" "It's good to talk to smart people," the leader sneered, "but don't worry, we'll take good care of you for the sake of your beauty. As for your companions—" They all laughed maliciously at the same time. Nan Xiaonan frowned. This was obviously a kind of trouble. Of course, she didn't care about this kind of trouble at all. But it was still a kind of trouble. When the trouble came, she had to deal with it. Well, the next situation is just to teach these reckless guys a lesson, and complete the most common and old-fashioned face-slapping. Nan Xiaonan looked at Boss Luo and said helplessly, "What if it becomes convenience? Just do it again." Boss Luo smiled and said, "What?" Nan Xiaonan was startled. Do what again?" "Do it again." She even had a feeling of being pulled away. It was as if nothing had happened. When the contradictory feeling of being pulled away from reality instantly disappeared, it was as if she had returned to the starting point. Nan Xiaonan's eyes suddenly turned into astonishment. "Guys, it's not easy for you 2 to pass the audition. The second stage of the test is very difficult. We should help each other. I've found a few like-minded friends, and we plan to pass the test together. Are you 2 interested?" She had heard these words once. But this time, these words were not said to her or Mr. Luo. These words were said to the other 2 contestants who had just passed the audition. The target was changed. This was doing it again. But time, oh what about time? Time seemed to be stolen, and also seemed to flow backward. What happened and what didn't happen, the past and the present. For a moment, Nan Xiaonan's brain was about to explode. That was. She looked at Boss Luo subconsciously. Luoqiu said casually, "No matter whether you admit it or not, similar things will always happen. No matter how ridiculous or stupid you think it is, stories can always find a more ridiculous prototype in the reality. So, the seemingly ordinary journey is just because you completely pulled yourself out from the absurd reality." Nan Xiaonan muttered, "Although it looks ordinary, if you really look at it from your point of view, this will be the real level of indescribable existence." Indescribable existence? Boss Luo was surprised. What a special adjective. Nan Xiaonan shook her head subconsciously, "Because I can't find how to describe it, or even describe this kind of existence, the relationship between living beings, so it's indescribable. In the void of the dimension, there have been existences with similar abilities. They are some guys who are older than some of the ancient giants in the current void." Nan Xiaonan suddenly looked at Boss Luo and said slowly, "No one knows their names and everything about them. But in order to better remember these guys, we still habitually gave them a special name: indescribable existence. In other words, there are guys who can do something like this." Boss Luo nodded and smiled. Lady Nan is really knowledgeable. She didn't care about this kind of praise, she just widened her eyes. "What do you mean by something like this?" "It's our turn to go in." Boss Luo smiled and said, I'll go in first. But seeing Mr. Luo leave leisurely, Nan Xiaonan began to draw a public notice in her mind. Could it be indescribable existence? Ancient giant void power. What's that? Nan Xiaonan was confused. That's out of my league.